Step of time. Let's start here. All right. So this week at Bungie, we introduced seasonal challenges. Welcome to the second to last TWAB of the season of the hunt. Many of you have been navigating the secrets of the Harbinger mission, uncovering randomly rolled hawkmoons and earning the Radiant Acceptor exotic ship. Content-wise, we're coming close to the end of the season, and we're incredibly excited for what's to come in just a few short weeks. We've been covering some of the upcoming quality of life changes to Destiny 2, like the return of Umbral Engrams. I honestly kind of forgot about that, but I'm still excited about that for sure. Let's look at some fresh content. So step one right here, first thing right off the bat, Season of the Redacted. We don't know the name of it yet, but the trailer coming out this coming Tuesday, February 2nd. That is this Tuesday, a week before the season starts. So that's pretty cool. Deathbringer. Well, we gotta get to the rockets part, right? We gotta get to the rockets part. The thing is that they talk specifically that exotics are gonna be tuned differently, and they didn't say what that means, but when we get there, we'll talk about that. Before we get there, we have a new feature to cover seasonal challenges and a round of weapon-focused sandbox changes to walk through. This warning is a pretty large amount of information in a small space. We joked about meaty TWABs before, but this one may be a bit overwhelming if you rush through it. Let's not rush through it then. Let's take it slow, step by step, and get through it together in one piece. To the seasonal challenges. Do I think the nerf will cause a two-phase on Atrax? I mean, we already two-phase Atrax sometimes. Kind of depends. Could be, could not be. Could be something that becomes better, right? It's that's something to think about, right? That's something to think about. It changes everything. Changes everything. I mean, like, as of right now, and there's different strats to Atrax, right? If we're going to talk quickly about swords here, different strats for Atrax. Some people do 646, and they can already kill them in 3 phases, right? Like 3/4 of one phase, if you consider like up down one phase. And there's other teams where you just go 3/3 3/3. And maybe people are late to DPS or don't have a lot of buffs, whether it be a bubble or a well or a lucent blade. And they're set up as it is. Sometimes don't get a one phase, right? So maybe. But seasonal challenges. Let's start here. Over the last year, we've been looking at ways in which we can reduce the amount of FOMO, fear of missing out, in Destiny 2. We've recently made some changes to seasons and how seasonal content is available throughout a given year in Destiny 2, which that was kind of talking about how they're keeping stuff in for the whole year, most of the things for the whole year, like the Hawkmoon mission is staying the whole year, the Wrathborn hunt staying the whole year. They talked about that last TWAB. Most of the stuff that's in this season is staying for the entire year rather than being, out at the end of the season, kind of like last year with what's a good example? Sundial or the public event that everybody hate. Well, most people hate. I'm not gonna say everybody. I personally didn't like it much. But those things like came in for a season ended, they were gone, new stuff. This year seems like most of the things that come in a season staying for the whole year. Then the new season, more new stuff, more new stuff. No, Sundial was fine. I was talking about the public event with the balls that you threw at the thing, and then the invisible vandals would like get on the plate at the very last second and screw you from getting what you needed. Like that part is what I hated. Sundial was fine. This week we're looking to bounties and Bright Dust, introducing a new system not only to remove FOMO, but give fresh ways to earn XP and alternate rewards. To walk us through the ins and outs of seasonal challenges, we pass the mic to the development team. Let's go. Other one was trash. It was spooky. Prep time 50%. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for Atrax, right? EOT it's gonna be interesting. Seraph Towers, yes, thank you, Cardiac. Also, hello, friend. How are you doing, sir? Yes, Seraph Towers was what I was looking for. And not more Umbrals. So UT. I mean, we could go back really quick. Give me a second. Let's go back and look really, really, really quickly at last week's TWAB, because there's a couple things here that I think could be important to look at. This will be this one, right? All right, so we have last week's TWAB. I think was it last? Yeah, Umbral. So quick note on the Umbral engrams thing, because I think this is important, and especially going forward and looking at like different changes to other stuff. So again, without like reading everything, they supposedly lowered it. I mean, they said we've pared back the number of activities they will drop from, so you can focus on the following activities to look for Umbrals. This is still a lot of activities, right? Like this is like what else is there other than like the raids and like seriously, like what else is there besides like the raid, right? Like patrols, strikes, crucible, gambit, nightfalls, public events, which is in patrols, blind well, nightmare hunts, exo channel. Like this is like everything anyway. But they did say if we continue further, they're rebalancing the drop rate, fewer Umbral engrams, which I think is needed. Like it was just too many. Too many umbrals. But the positive here too, is especially for someone like me that runs a crap ton of raids, is you're still earning umbral engrams even just from defeating enemies. So like even if you're in a raid, even like it doesn't matter where, you can still get umbral engrams just from defeating enemies or specifically doing any of the things that you're probably doing anyway. Um, and then I'm trying to think if there's anything else like super important. Um, Prismatic lenses. Yeah, I guess it's fine. And then there's the title stuff, but that was last week's talk, right? But I think that's important to think about when we're looking at like rockets and sword changes and all that type of stuff. Yo, kid, what's going on, sir? How are you doing? You're doing better than I was yesterday. That is good to hear, friend. I'm glad to hear that. I prefer umbrals than not having them just because more loot. Well, see, here's the thing, right? Here's my thing with umbrals, at least the way they were, 2 seasons ago. If you get that many of anything, if you get that many umbral engrams, legendaries, exotics, they become devalued. It just is a fact of life. Like if you have like if it's a really rare thing, right? Like it's like Eyes of Tomorrow, right? Perfect example. Eyes of Tomorrow, super rare, and honestly, that in and of itself gives it some value. It doesn't even matter if the weapon's super great, but like that in and of itself gives it some value. Versus, umbral engrams, you get literally just you can't even keep up with your inventory. I mean, not even, and this isn't even considering the concept of the fact that you can only hold 10 engrams, and at least for myself, and I know a lot of other people, were literally getting them in their postmaster. They'd have to come back to the tower just to like clean their postmaster, turn them in, just to make sure they didn't lose stuff from their postmaster or whatever else. Like it was at a ridiculous level, right, in terms of how many we were getting. And again, it becomes devalued on what you're actually getting from the umbrals because you're just getting so many. It's like, okay, I can get everything I want pretty quickly, and that's that. Again, the opposite side of that, I do think that umbrals have a good place in the game, especially if they are sticking with the sunsetting idea, right? Because I think that with sunsetting, there does need to be more ease of getting weapons. Because if you're getting a weapon and you can only use it for a year max, or maybe even a little bit less, depending on if you get it later in that season or in a follow-up season that then it's well maybe only 6 months or whatever. It should feel like it's easier to get the weapon you want and the role you want on it, because you're gonna you're not gonna have it forever. And definitely in a world in which that you did have those things forever, then I don't agree. I think that was a pretty damn poor system, honestly, like in terms of the ease of getting things. But in a world in which you're constantly kind of needing to grind different weapons and upgrade your weapons and get different weapons, I do like the concept of you have the ability to kind of grind those out pretty decently. Hopefully that makes some sense. Enjoyed all the seasonal events last year except Seraph. Yeah, Seraph Towers, didn't enjoy it much. Face doesn't hurt, able to talk today, and last night was up till about 4:30. At one point, I bit down an accident, and since her teeth are all messed up, but hard enough that I punched through the gums was bleeding. That sounds like a really shitty night, friend. But I'm glad to hear you're doing better today, Cardiac. That is definitely a positive. Don't think we got enough engrams, Kappa. Yeah, I don't think that. See, most things that we can talk about, right? Some people are going to be on one side, some people are going to be on the other. We've talked about that specific idea in the past. I don't think I've ever actually heard someone seriously say that we didn't get enough umbrals. And I know you put Kappa there, but that I think is one thing we can all agree. And I think maybe some people would say that they just purely did like how many we got. But I don't think everybody would be like, we didn't get enough, we need more. But that's fair. Too many yes, not useless. Targeting loot you want was neat. Right. I think the targeted loot concept, Goots, is really, really useful. Really, really useful. Way too easy to level. That was bugged, right? That was bugged, UT, for a while. The first couple weeks where you could, like, turn it into armor or whatever, and it would be a guaranteed powerful. That wasn't meant to be a thing. That was a bug. That was, unfortunately there. Although even something like that is something that then people were like, oh, no, but, like, some people get to use it. And see, that is a really good argument for why it's really difficult for them to potentially, like, turn back sunsetting, or B, let you use your weapons that you had before, like, the Dreaming City and Moon weapons that are coming back. That right there is a really good argument, like, why it would be really difficult for them to do that. Because you guys remember how many complaints there were of, like, oh, this person was able to play, like, during this time where it was bugged and they got super leveled, but, like, I couldn't play this time, and so I'm, like, under leveled, and now the bug's gone and I can't level. Like, there were people screaming about that, right? And that would be very similar, or potentially even, it could be even worse in a situation in which, people got rid of their sunset weapons, and now suddenly they were to like reenact the ability to like upgrade the new one into your old one, or like suddenly you can just upgrade your old one type of thing. Um, that would be, it'd be between a rock and a very, very, very hard place for Bungie to do that. Um, like an interesting event with decent farmer loot targeting, right? And I mean, this isn't the one, but this whole system with Umbrals, right? With the way it was and the way it is now, people, another big argument or big thing people are very vocal about is play your way, right? Like they want to be able to play whatever they want to play and still be able to make progress and still be able to get the weapons they want, etc. And this is like a system that really speaks to those people, right? Like I personally like the idea of like different content has different loot that you get from it. Like raids have this loot, Nightfalls have this loot, like strike specific loot, right? A lot of people talk about that too. Trials has this loot. Gambit has this, and it seems like they're kind of trying to do both, right? So they have this set of stuff that's in Umbral engrams that you can get from pretty much anything, and then pick which thing you want. And then they're also talked about, and it's not in this TWAB, it was a couple TWABs ago, that they're adding 6 new, like activity-focused engrams, or weapons, like two for strikes, 2 for Crucible, 2 for Gambit, where it is like specific stuff from specific things. And obviously, again, Raids is already like that. Trials is already like that. We have Vaulted Glass hopefully coming soon. That's going to be assuming like that. So they're trying to kind of hit both ends. And I think Umbrals being the kind of easier end where you can get a lot of them and kind of pick what you want is good. I think, again, it was a little crazy, and hopefully it's a little bit tuned. Also, Lyric, thank you for the host friend. How are you doing tonight? Right, exactly, Corey. Like that feels really bad. It's like if you just want to be able to play, and like and how often you had to do it, right? Like it wasn't even like, oh, I played for 6 hours, now I got to go back to the tower. Like that would be okay, right? It was like, oh, I played for like 45 minutes or an hour. I somehow have, my engrams are going into my postmaster already. Like that's too quick. That's pretty crazy. Don't think I got enough Umbrals. Oh my god, Season of the Umbrals. That's the next one. You only played 2. Well, yeah. If you only started playing 2 weeks before, you only had 2 weeks to do it. The thing is, for not only, for those of us that played that whole season, kid, not only how many Umbrals we got, that was by far the longest season we've ever had, right? Because they delayed Beyond Light, so it was supposed to be about, I think, 13, 14 weeks. They delayed Beyond Light an extra 7 weeks, so we had a 20+ week season of, just insane engrams everywhere. But yeah, it was all cool stuff. Yo, Mac, what's going on, dude? How are you doing? Should bring back certain Sunstep stuff. Not sure if it would work though. Well, my idea, on that is similar-ish, right? And then that wouldn't be a bad idea. Like I think that could even be an addition, right? So bringing back Sunset stuff to get back easier, right? And again, avoiding that idea of people already got rid of their stuff. Anger that would happen if they were to just be like, oh, you could just use your old stuff again. But also, if there is stuff that's about to be sunset, kind of putting that in the Umbrals section, because again, this is super. Even with a nerf, I feel like Umbrals are still going to be pretty common. They're just not going to be ridiculous. And again, you could target what you want, or at least the way it worked before was a 50-50. Like you could pick between one of 2 weapons. And so you'll get a lot of them. Probably get a good roll or even a god roll relatively decently, and be able to do that. So that's pretty nice. Grandmasters with 3 unique weapons. Good call on that. Unique and adept weapons of them. So that's pretty cool. Man is Mega Lies. No Lyrics, a gamer, dude. I like the idea of a mix of specific targeted loot in the Umbrella engram system. Gotta love umbrellas. I think that's important, right, Brower? No matter what we say, right? This is a game that is very much for both, very hardcore players and people that just want to log in and be able to play the game, enjoy the game, and not like get ridiculously far behind, right? And so I think having both systems where, those that are hardcore in the raid, and even the raid, right? I think that was a really, really, really ingenious system with the box at the end and the spoils, where it's like I can go into the raid, get most of the weapons other than Eyes of Tomorrow, pretty relatively quickly within, 5 runs probably for most people, maybe closer to 10. But then for those that want to run the raid 50, 80, 100 more times, I could try to get every single weapon with the exact roll. Like I want the exact masterwork. I want the exact like this, that, the other thing. Like I think that's a really, really nice addition to raids to make that way more potentially possible, because before, you're locked out. You have your 3 raids a week, and everybody was on that same playing field of like, okay, we can all get the weapons, but like, what are the chances I actually get the role I want on a weapon? Versus again, this is more of like an umbral system if you play the raid specifically a lot, where umbrals are the same way. Like if I want to just get the weapon, I want to get one of every weapon, or at least a decent roll, maybe take me a couple rolls, or I want to get the exact roll. The exact roll. It's a whole new thing. Cardiac coming in with that 20 a month resub. This close to 2 years. This close, friend. I appreciate it, sir. Too kind. Thank you for that continued support, sir. And again, appreciates you, man. Appreciates you. Combine umbrals to make things more deterministic. Weapons, perks, masterworks. Be interesting. That'd be a much. I feel like that'd be a lot of like deeper system. I don't know like how. I feel like that'd be difficult for them to potentially implement. I think it would be a cool idea. Be a cool idea. I think what would be maybe more interesting in my brain is to kind of to take off of that idea is rather than combining umbrals, you take an umbral, or maybe like maybe you still combine umbrals, but then also take a certain amount of gunsmith materials and enhancement cores and enhancement prisms or ascendant shards, like kind of making there be like taking the whole economy, the whole player economy as a whole, and attaching it to the ability to get these kind of end game rolls from a more localized source and a like more open source, if you will, when it comes to like any possible encounter that you may or any possible activity you may want to get it from. Weapons like Gnawing Hunger and Achilleos can be from Unbreakable Farming, but something like Succession and Heritage is a targeted weapon, like the blending of the two systems. Absolutely. In theory, I want GM raid weapons to be special. Normal stuff, I like to play your way idea. Right, 100%, 100%, 100,000%. And I think this is really what they've done a pretty good job on this season, at least personally for me, is, they have those weapons, especially going forward with the Umbrals coming back. They'll have the weapons, everybody can get from any activity, etc. And then they have the raid weapons that actually do have some unique perks and some unique extra power in there. And I think that they could even go a little bit further, honestly, where you do have a reason to like want to push yourself to go into the raids or go into the GMs and get a little bit of extra strength, get a little bit extra power, and go from there. So I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And that's true, Goots. That's true. If we go back, we've mostly talked about last TWAB so far, but it was a good TWAB. They did have this thing where they have these lenses, right? Which is this? Yeah. So this is kind of what you were just saying, sort of, Troll. Is they have this prismatic recaster. It's returning as a kiosk, and it can turn umbrals into focused umbrals, which they kind of had before. Actually, they did. Specific, that is literally what it was before. But now they have where's the lenses? Or am I stupid? Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Prismatic lenses. So this can either target a narrower collection of gear or specific armor stats. Is this only for armor though? I don't know. I don't think this is only for armor. I think this one would maybe be also for weapons. And I know that they've done this thing before, with the specific armor stats or high roll stats. That's been like, not exactly that. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see going forward. I'm willing to. I feel like they've had enough feedback there where it's like if they continue to be like high roll stats and it's like 10, then they're just I don't know they're losing their minds for some reason. Agreed regarding the raid system for sure. Sounds like the GM adepts will be exclusive there. Yes, absolutely, and I'm excited for that for sure. The lure. True. Yeah, the lure kind of did the same thing there, Goots, this season. Again, that was another system in which, and actually that is a good point. They did do the weapon rolls thing. We've never had that before, have we? Where you could put in the different little like mod things, and then it would make it that you for sure didn't get like half the perks, right? Like you could make it like exclude this list of perks from the first slot, exclude this list of perks from the second slot. That's a really good point. So they kind of, yeah. It wasn't like, exacting in what you were going to get, but you could definitely specify a little bit with the weapons. First time they did that, yeah, because they've done that on the armor, but yeah, weapons doing that is pretty cool. Like that, I thought it was cool too. I mean, the weapons and the perks themselves weren't like amazing in my brain, And I think a lot of it too was just the difference, right? So let's talk about that for a second too before we get to that. We still haven't talked about this, but that's okay. We went from Umbral engrams where it's like you could play anything you wanted, get a billion of them, and roll your weapons, get all the weapons you wanted, get really good rolls on all the things you wanted, and then we went to Wrathborn hunts, which you had to specifically play Strikes, Gambit, or Crucible just to get them like started. You had to probably play multiple matches just to get one charge, which then you could then have to leave that, go do the charge, like go to either the Dreaming City or Tangled Shore, go to the like the big statue thing, like fight the guy, go chase him, fight the guy, and all of that just to get one roll on a weapon, and then you have to go back in and do like, and you can only hold three charges at the start. Even now, you can only hold 5. Like at least if you could hold like I don't know 50 charges or something, where you could just play like let's say at the start of the season, I just wanted to play like a million strikes, and I have 50 charges, and then I could go in and do all those things. Then I feel like that would have been a little better. Because again, I think the TLDR of what I'm saying, Umbral engrams were too much, too easy, and then this season was like kind of ridiculous on the other hand, right? Like, or it just went like, to actually get these weapons, I got to do way too many different weird things, and then I can only go in and actually play the new activity for like a couple minutes, honestly. And then I got to go back and play more of the other stuff to just be able to play the new stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I didn't particularly like that kind of system, but again, I'm excited with the new Umbral system coming in. I think that will be kind of interesting, and I'm also interested to see whatever the new content is this season that may have a higher drop rate of Umbrals or have like specific loot that we only get from that. So we'll have to see how that goes. Shin, how's it going, sir? Welcome in. Good evening. Good evening. Right. No, for sure, Goots. I'm excited. Like with systems like that, right? I'm excited when they're in there, even if they aren't necessarily executed perfectly, just because it gives us like ideas for where they may build that into the future, right? And again, I'm hopeful that they continue to do that, right? Sometimes they have ideas, i.e., armor sets, right, from Gambit Prime. Like when that happened, right, Gambit Prime armor sets, and some people may have liked it, some people might have not liked it. I didn't care whatsoever about the fact that it was the armor sets in Gambit Prime, right? I didn't care about any of that. I wasn't super, hype about Gambit or Gambit Prime. Like, it was just fine, good game. But what I was excited about is the concept that armor sets were in the game in any place at all. Because I was like, dude, future, like, raid armor sets where we get bonuses just for wearing the armor set, grinding out like every armor set piece, and then like having a good roll on that, so I actually get the stats I want, and then also getting bonuses on top of that, but for using it in the raid. Strike armor sets where I could do the same thing and get the bonuses for using it in strikes. Even or I mean that was a Gambit armor set, but Gambit armor sets, Crucible armor sets are like harder to like. I don't know how I feel about that because that could definitely be a balance problem, unless it was more of a like economy Crucible type of thing, because I know a lot of people talk about for Crucible players, it is harder for them to get things like like prisms or golf balls unless you're doing trials maybe, but like prisms and golf balls is for playing like pure Crucible. Obviously we have Nightfalls for PvE players, but like if they had a Crucible armor set where you could get those things easier. I know they added the ghost mods this season for kind of all things, but they can even go further, right? And I think that would be a avoiding balance issues while still kind of having some interesting stuff there. And you're on Wi-Fi. Let's go, bro. Let's go. Alrighty. Next season with vendor stuff. Vendor stuff. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they're adding at least one golf ball. Was that last week too? Might have been last week. Their titles. Might have been 2 weeks ago. I think that was 2 weeks ago. Hold on. This is just all the last. We're not actually talking about this TWAB. We're just going to talk about all the old TWABs. But I mean, it all kind of comes into play into one thing, right? Hello? You there, Bungie? Bungie, please? There we go. Should be this one. Yeah, so like and I'm assuming Gambit's going to be the same as this, or at least very similar, where you can get the golf ball at the end of the rank. The one thing that kind of sucks, at least to most of us that have been playing a long time probably, is this part right here, is you get the reset reward of Ascendant Shard, but then it changes to an exotic engram after resetting your rank. Like for newer players, I could see that being really, really beneficial for those that like don't have all their exotics and stuff. But for like, people that have been playing since the beginning or playing for a while, most people have every exotic in the game. At least every exotic that you can get from, the engram pool. Um, and so like this feels kind of eh. But it's a start. It's a start for sure. And I think it's more meaningful than like, the tokens and all that type of system. So, seems good. Seems good. Bungie fence sits again. Yeah, but sometimes. Here, this honestly, I'm very excited about. Let's talk about this, right? So we started looking at the problems of bounty fatigue and FOMO as well as seasonal legibility. What is in a season and how do I engage with it when I log in? We've created a few goals which we believe will improve the experience. Provided a guide to new returning and veteran players for what to do today and this week. Guide the player through the seasonal content week over week, encourage players to engage with complexities and nuances of the seasonal activity and rituals, and reduce the penalties on XP and Bright Dust for missing a given week. To solve these goals, we are introducing a new pursuit type for players, seasonal challenges. The seasonal challenges live on their own page and are accessed through the quest log or season pass and are separated by week. So we've got this. So like basically the way I look at this is rather than having weekly bounties, which I think later they talk about the fact that weekly bounties are gone, having you go to the tower, pick up your weekly bounties, which I mean maybe you're going to do that anyway, pick up your daily bounties and potentially repeatable bounties, but sure. But the nice thing here, right, is you have week 1, you unlock all of whatever these are, and so this gives you a reason, like for someone like me, I just want a reason to play the game. Like literally just give me a reason to go in and like shoot stuff and I will most likely do it, right? And so this gives that, number 1. Number 2, let's say, week 1 I'm busy, I'm out of town, I went somewhere, whatever else, or maybe even 2 weeks. I come back on week 3. Week 1 and 2, and I talk about this somewhere. A little bit further down, I think, somewhere in here. Right here. So these challenges can only be completed once per account, but once they become available, these challenges can be completed at any time before the end of the season and do not need to be started or picked up from a vendor. So this is essentially 2 things there, right? So week 3, now I have week 1, week 2, and week 3 stuff all to do. So that gives me like if I miss a little bit of time, I have a lot to do, and I can come back in and have a lot of things to play, which is cool. And B, I don't miss anything if I can only, let's say I can only play like every other week for some reason, or again, I'm out for a week or 2 for some reason. I come back, I didn't miss anything. And secondly, which is in that exact same sentence, the once per account thing could be looked at semi-negatively for some people, but it's also a big positive for a lot of these things are probably like, kill 100 things or do like 250 whatevers, right? And like if I'm on my warlock, I'm making progress to that. Then I switch over to my hunter to do like a pinnacle or something, and then I'm still making progress on that. I switch over to my titan and do that, I'm still making progress on that. And it's just like account wide versus I have to do it on all 3 characters and I have to play characters I don't really want to play. Or again, the big thing too, if I only have 1 character, I'm good. I'm golden. I'm good to go. Grape, thank you for the follow and welcome in. I hope you're doing well tonight. We're just we're talking about the new TWAB. Well, finally we're talking about the new TWAB. We're kind of talking about some of the old TWABs as well. But I'm very excited about this. Again, is it like a game-changing, like, oh my god, the best thing I've ever seen? No. But I think it will add more Bright Dust to those of us that care about Bright Dust. Again, it makes it so that we don't feel like we have to like switch to all 3 characters and do like all the different things all at the same time. I like this. I like this a lot. Honestly, the one thing, which is I could see why they wouldn't do it. The one thing I would maybe have liked to seen is like instead of having like all 10 weeks, like I would have liked to seen like if there's a week 10 challenge, why can't I just do that week 1, right? Like why can't I just have all of the challenges unlocked and do them like from the start of the season, to the end. But I also see like some of the stuff may be like seasonal content where it is not even out yet. B, again, like there is some sort of like that would be like really just like so much stuff. Like it'd be very intimidating, I think, potentially just to throw that much stuff at you all at once. And so I can kind of see that. Looks like Fortnite where you can do the weeks as they drop are all in the last week if you're so inclined. Right, exactly. I like that a lot. Yo, Matt, what's going on, dude? Todd, corn, all the corn. You hate that they're taking out weekly bounties because it makes it like Fortnite. I mean, That's a good. I feel like, but these theoretically, you can play these like Fortnite, or not like Fortnite. You can play these like weekly bounties, right? So like week one comes out, you can pretend these are your weekly bounties, right? Like if you want to play them like weekly bounties, week one's out, I'm doing all my weekly bounties, done. Week two comes out, doing all my weekly bounties, done. Week three comes out, doing all my weekly bounties, done. Like there's really no downside. It's just it opens up the ability where it's like if I can't play that week, or if I don't want to play that week, or if I want to, if a crazy awesome new game comes out on week four that I want to go play that for a week, but then I come back on week five, I still have my week four stuff that I can do. I have my week five stuff that I can do. Like it just opens up more flexibility. Again, the one goal that they had here, right, was reduce FOMO or remove FOMO. Doesn't completely remove FOMO, no, but it reduces FOMO in the fact that like I don't feel like, oh, I missed a week, crap, like that sucks. Like I have to do it this week. It definitely reduces it. Again, they did say somewhere that these bounties go away at the end of the season, or these challenges go away at the end of the season. So there is still like some, obviously. Like there's never going to be no FOMO. Like they're never going to put things in the game that like there's no reason to play it, right? Like then there's just no reason to play in the first place. So like there's gonna always be like some level of it, but like this is a more reasonable level versus again, like I have to play every week. Or for example, like last year when the Fell Winters came out, I had to play within these 2 weeks, otherwise I'm screwed, and now I don't have Fell Winters for like 6 months, which they're fixing in 2 weeks, supposedly, which is good. But like that type of stuff, no go, no go. What's a Fortnite? What's up, Cat? How's it going? Bounties expire. These don't. It's not a bad play. Right. Like, you could look at these purely as bounties. Like, if you want to look at these as bounties, as weekly bounties, they pretty much are, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. You can't read what this fully says, but complete weekly playlist, something, probably a certain amount of times, right? So, like, if I want to go, whatever this, let's say this is like strikes or maybe, I don't know. Whatever this is, I could do that as normal. Or defeat Guardians in the Mayhem playlist. This is probably what this says. So it's like week one, if I want to go in and play that as a weekly bounty, I can do that. I can finish it up. I'm done. Weekly bounty done. Or, you know, I don't want to do that right now. Week four, I do it. I still got it. Hate that bounties have a timer, though. Exactly. These don't. These do not. Other than the end of the season. Again, the end of the season, like, I understand. But like at some point they gotta there should be like a little push to like play the game, and some of the stuff, you know, may not be in there the same way. And they did talk about something. I thought this was a little bit later maybe. Most of the challenges disappear after the season they were introduced. Anything that isn't claimed will be lost. But I thought there was. Yeah, so this part though, right? So any challenge that rewards unique or seasonal items can still be completed as long as the seasonal activity is still in the game. So like they're kind of middle grounding it a little bit. You know. I can see them doing it this way so that people don't get all the challenges done the first week or two while there's a right, true, cardiac. That's a good point. It's a good point. I like it. I don't have much time for weekly challenges all the time and often lose challenges due to them timing out. This way I can knock them out as I can. Exactly. Absolutely, Yoda. Absolutely. I believe this is not intended for hardcore content creators, the people who consume the entire season in 12 hours and complain about no content. Right? True. And what Cardiac said kind of talks to that point, right? In terms of, like, for those people, if they just gave it all out at once, then they would do exactly that, right? They would just knock out everything in 12 hours and be done. It at least, like, gives something, you know, to be a little bit excited about every week for those of us that are like super hardcore and are gonna do like every single season challenge like on day one, like Tuesday of every single week or something like that. You know, it gives it a little bit of a reason to go in. Is this like a perfect reason? Is this like, oh man, like if for someone that's like really like not loving the game right now, because I know there's some people that are enjoying it a lot, there's some people that are not. For if someone's like super against like everything that's going on, is this going to change their mind? Absolutely not. But it does add add flexibility, I think, for, you know, either more casual or more hardcore people. And it just, I don't know, I just like stuff like this. I like, there's more of them, right? At the very least, like, literally, I mean, I guess a couple, like, this is 5, and because right now we would have 6 weekly challenges, but, you know, the first few weeks there's 10, right? 10, we had 6 weekly challenges, now we have 10. And, you know, there's different stuff to do. It just throws more things in. I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's cool. And it kind of adds more. It feels like a more like in-depth game and more things to do and more stuff to shoot, and I like that. I like that personally. And Superfly Jonesy, thank you for the follow. Welcome in tonight. Hope you're doing well. We're just we're having some TWAB discussions at the moment. Kills with kinetics. Yeah, there's kills with kinetics is good. I mean, this is a nice one, right? So like, I don't even have to specifically, although this might be on a certain place, kills like calibrate kinetic weapons on Europa or on fallen enemies. Like we can't see what this says. But like that type of thing, where if I'm a super hardcore person that wants to get them all done right away, cool, done. Or if I'm someone that just like doesn't have as much time, just does plays what I want to, over 10 weeks of a season or maybe even more, then whatever this specific thing is, kinetic weapons are something that everybody uses a good amount, right? So like I'll probably get a lot of this stuff done almost on accident as the weeks go by. So that is, I think, a nice little middle ground there. So much glimmer wasted. Kitty, I got you, dude. Glimmer vid. Boom. XD. Be sure to message you while there's nothing to do once a week. Got him. Unlike D1 bounties, that was a revelation that they didn't expire, and I kind of like that. Right. No, for sure, Brower. For sure. And this is another... Right, so if we let's talk D2 for a second, right, from D1 to D2. D2 first comes out, right, and we go to a planet, or we go to a strike, or we go to whatever else, and the challenges are attached to those places. I don't know, for those of you that played D2 at launch, I don't know if you remember that. And everybody, like, hated that, right? And it's like, oh, I can't see the stuff, I can't, like, I have to go there to be able to see it. And it's like, okay, we'll make them bounties. And so then they made them bounties, and then you have to go to then everybody's like, oh man, I have to go to the places, I have to pick them up, I have to like, they expire, and the expire part, I don't know necessarily why they have to expire, but like, I have to go pick them up now, I have to like go there, and it's like both sides they complain about. This one is kind of a middle ground, right? So this is, I'm assuming, some sort of tab, it doesn't show the top part of them, some sort of tab that you can see at all times, I'm hopeful. On page, yeah, on their own page, access through the quest log or season pass, right? So like this is with you all the time. You can do it from orbit. I can see what I need to see all at a glance on one page. I like this. I like this a lot. At least when it comes to that, for sure. If I get Doctrine back, they can do whatever they want on the TWAB. I'm okay with it not being restricted to the week, and think having it tied to the season, but letting you get it done when you can throughout the season is good. Right. I agree. Only thing that really annoys me about the current bounty system is some of the strike weeklies trying to get some of the enemies in the actual playlist is entirely frustrating. End up having to play and pick one that has the enemies you need, but without the modifiers in the strike playlist. That is a really, really good point, UT. And I'm not sure if this is going to help with that at all. But yeah, like especially stuff like Vex. Like there's not really even like a strike that really has only Vex. Even picking a strike, I don't feel good about it, right? That's a really good point. I'd like to see more like, okay, I have to run 3 strikes or I have to run 5 strikes, and maybe kill like X amount of enemies. Both of those things. I think it's important that there are both, because if it's like run 3 strikes, loading up Lake of Shadows, done. If it's kill 150 enemies only, loading up the Dreaming City one, going to the Blind Well, and not actually running the strike. Like people will shortcut these things infinitely. So I feel like completion of strikes and kills, both, like, and in a reasonable amount of each, where it's like I would probably get about this many kills in about this many strikes, is helpful to kind of making those things be useful. Just a quick summary for a catch-up so far. Quick summary, honestly, we talked mostly about last week's TWAB and the week before, but super quick summary is a trailer coming on Tuesday for the new season. And we're talking about the seasonal challenges, which are basically replacing weekly bounties, but make it so that you can do your weekly bounties at any point during the season. So like let's just quick example, there's 10 weeks here that are shown on the page here. So like week 1 would be as if I went to, the vendors now, whether it be Strikes, Gambit, or Crucible, picked up all my 10 weekly bounties in this system, and then in this system, I have them for the whole season, rather than like I only have them for the week and I have to do them that week. So that's super TLDR of what we talked about so far, I suppose, on this. Like the seasonal challenges, I just want new content. Well, this is an addition, right? We haven't seen what the new seasonal piece of content is yet. Again, the seasons are never like huge when it comes to that. We do know Vault of Glass is coming soon, TM. I'm not hopeful for that to be this coming season. I'm hopeful for it to be in the season that should start in May-ish, June-ish. As someone that raids a lot, very excited about that personally. But yeah, the actual like seasonal stuff, there's not usually like insane amounts of like brand new like playing content per se, but like even some of the stuff that they already have in the game, like there's a lot of things that people haven't played a ton or haven't had like great rewards attached to. Like for example, I don't know for the how many of you guys have played all three EXO challenges, and B, like played them like religiously like every week. I feel like those are really nice pieces of content that they put a lot of work into. But I mean, there's a pinnacle attached to them if you get far enough in the Europa stuff with Varix. But other than that, there's not like a great reason to play it, even though it's super fun. At least I find it super fun, and I find it pretty interesting. So I feel like adding reasons to play some of the content is almost more important, if not is just as important, if not more important, than actually the content itself. I think both ends are important, but it's gotta look at both. Gotta look at both. Pyramidian. No trolling, all owed. Wait, what? What happened was? Ended up playing 2 Glassways to get your Vex kills this week. Right. There was a strike with Vex, but it was on Mercury. It's gone now. Glassway. Well, yeah, Glassway is like halvesies. What's that one with the inverted spire? I think has like some Vex sprinkled through, but it's not like a full Vex. But yeah, on Mercury, true. But yeah, Mercury big gone. Do you still get Bright Dust for these? Yes. If we go further, which we can skip ahead a little bit and then come back. The seasonal challenges, they've just kind of given us here's the numbers straight up, skipping all the kind of words for now. But for the seasonal activities, so there's the ones that says free seasonal activities right here. This is what you can do if you do not have the season pass, if you don't buy the season. You'll be able to get 6,000 total Bright Dust if you do all the stuff. If you do buy the season pass, you'll have even more challenges to do, which you can get 4,000 more, and basically you can get 10,000 Bright Dust from doing all the challenges over the 10 weeks that were just shown. Then the season pass itself, just from getting levels as we do now, we get 7,500 for everybody, another 3,000 for the season pass itself, another 10,500, which is a little over 20,000. And then they also talked about, which again I'm going to go through all of this in a minute, but when we go back up. But they also talked about there is the 8 bounties now, where you can do 8 bounties at Strikes, 8 bounties for Crucible, 8 bounties for Gambit. You could do those now for powerful drops. Those are additionally going to give you 120 Bright Dust for doing them. And you can still do them per character per week. So that'd be 360 per week. And then this actually tells us how many weeks there would be. Or no, it'd be 360 times 3. So I was like, that's a lot of weeks. That doesn't make sense. That'd be 900, 180, 1,080. 1,080 per week if you did them on all 3 characters and all three of them. And then time, well, that would be 13 weeks probably? I think it's 13 weeks without doing the math. And yeah, if you do them all, if you do every single one of them, that'll give you another 14,000 Bright Dust, which is almost 35,000 Bright Dust over the season. This is not including any of the repeatables that still should give 10 Bright Dust, which is noted right here. Repeatable Bright Dust bounties for seasonal, and also events that there may be, although they do talk about, again, we're skipping all over the place now, they do talk about Crimson Days. TLDR of this whole entire thing of Crimson Days is gone. They may bring it back in the future, possibly, or other events, but Crimson Days not coming is the super TLDR while we're talking about that. Crossplay is 100% with Witch Queen. I can see it. He said, I've never ran any D1 raids. Yo, what is up, Papa? I'm excited. Dude, I am super excited for VOG. I love the raid. The weapons are insane. I know there's a lot of you guys that never played D1 because either A, you were only on PC, or B, you just never played D1, or C, maybe you did play D1 but didn't have teams to run raids with, or D, you did play D1 and you did do VOG, but you're just excited to play it too. So I'm very excited for all of those things for sure. Only done one, and that's because I just unlocked them. EXO challenges too easy though. I mean, they're not meant to be, like, not everything is meant to be like difficult, right? Like, I mean, there has to be some easier content, some more difficult content. I mean, the goal should be fun in all the content, right? But I mean, EXO challenges aren't necessarily meant to be like super difficult. Although and again, this is another good point, right? For what is easy for one person is not necessarily easy for another. I've heard people talk about EXO challenges being difficult, specifically the one where you have to like defend the center or whatever. I heard like multiple people talking about like this is like ridiculous and all sorts of stuff, which I mean, I don't personally agree with. I didn't think it was that bad, but there's people out there. There is all different skill levels. There is all different like thresholds for like what people want to see in the game and how much difficulty they want in the game. And I think that there needs to be different pieces of content for each of those ideals, if you will. Like, I don't think if everything was Grandmaster level, a lot of people would quit. If everything was, patrol on the Cosmodrome level, a lot of people would quit. Like you got to have both, where it's like I just want to go out and shoot some dudes and whatever, and then there's like I want to be aspirational content where I got to be on my game P's and Q's and X's and O's and get like crazy stuff, right? I think there needs to be both. So that's important to me. Need to alter VOG to some degree. The mechanics are pretty dated when compared to D2 mechanics. Absolutely, Omar. Agreed. They have specifically mentioned they are going to. I mean, even let's just consider the concept of Templar, right? Templar today, you drop a well, you kill him. Like what you could literally do easily. So you have the relic, you'd have your relic holder stand on one. Like if it was exactly like it was in D1, you'd have your relic holder and one well go over to one of the teleport spots, drop a well on the relic holder. They're blocking that spot. You have the other 4 people go to the other teleport spot, drop a well, and you stand there and shoot him from both sides. Like that would be it. Like there would be no like need for any sort of like movement from the relic holder to block the teleports. There'd be like no way that you could die in the well. Really, maybe are there supplicants in that one, or is it just harpies? I think it's just harpies, right? Like, I don't think there's the exploder guys. So like those couldn't, unless those were in there and they could insta kill you or something. That wouldn't work. But yeah, like you just sit in a well and survive forever. So that'd be a thing. Still only one fallen strike boss. I feel like there's more than one, isn't there? Because Word of Nothing is fallen. I feel like there's other ones than just him though. I could be wrong though. Only like Bright Dust for 2 emotes. That 40,000. That's like 12 emotes, bruh. Yeah, or was it 35? Whatever I just said, 35,000. That's like 10 emotes. That's like 10 or 11 exotic emotes, which probably won't have that many for the whole season. I wouldn't think. 13,900 Bright Dust for an emote. See that coming? I don't know. That would be a lot. That'd be a lot. If assuming they keep the numbers the same. This is like 3 emotes. This is like 3 or 4 emotes. This is like 4 emotes. Like that's this is definitely more Bright Dust than we're getting now. I'm almost certain. Like a lot more than we're getting now. I don't know what it would compare to the season before when they had like the 200 per for the weekly stuff. But yeah. Getting VOG next season. Is that confirmed, Mac? Like this coming season or like next season? Because I haven't heard anything specifically about a timeline for VOG. You didn't have console, for sure. Vaulted Glass be like Hyde and Cool Cat. Or wait, no, Glitch Cat. Let's go. Get ready for VOG. Badger. Last one is actually pretty difficult. What's up, Paramedic? We're discussing the TWAB. Depending on your loadout. Yeah, no, I mean, it can be. Like, I'm not, I didn't think it was hard. Like, I thought, I mean, the things could, like, get to me or whatever. I didn't think, like, people were saying, like, it was, like, or, like, screaming from the rooftops, like, it was, like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like, I don't think it was to that level. But it required at least a little bit of thought in, doing it. Loadout definitely is a big thing. And C, theoretically, the EXO challenge, you don't have to do solo. Like, I mean, a lot of people probably do them solo, but you can have a team, right? Like, I'm not crazy when I'm saying that. But yeah, no, that's fair. Aspirational and chill stuff is needed. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. You love running both at different times, right? 100%. Like, if it was all one thing or all the other, it would not be fun. Todd 4, let's go. In a few seasons, we'll be getting on that playing on the crossplay. They did talk about well, that's actually later. We got to get to that. Getting a pinnacle is not exciting. There should be dedicated weapons. No, exactly. That was my first point, right? That is 100% my first point of EXO challenges. Is they are really cool. They are really fun. The loot isn't there, and that's my point as a whole, right? Of like, I don't think it's necessarily that we need all sorts of more content. We just need to add more reward systems in the content that we already have. Because they can make fun content, they can make good content. I feel like EXO challenges are good and fun content. But it's not really that talked about because, yeah, I agree 1,000%. Like the pinnacle level system to me is not exciting. Trying to get, from 1250 to 1260 or next season if it's 1300 to 1310, like it's a number to chase, it's something to do, but it's not exciting. It's absolutely not exciting. That's why I really did like, and again, talking versus like specific loot versus like Umbrella Engram type systems, I really did like the fact that Empire Hunts had Cloud Strike. or the lost sectors had all of the new exotics to go into. So like you had to go into specific content to get these specific things. I feel like exo challenges is something that they missed. I would have loved to have seen like you had to solo the exo challenges to get a chance at, I don't know, just put one of the new exotic weapons or armor in there, and then that would give me a reason to have played it a little bit more. Because again, I think it's super cool content. I think it's super fun, pretty chill way to get a pinnacle. For those, and I think that's another thing too, right? A lot of the pinnacles, at least, are very team-based centric, whether they be dungeons or raids or trials. Very team-based. Need a fire team or like high-level nightfalls. Need a fire team to do them, or pretty much need a fire team. Yeah, you could be esoteric and solo the GM. That being said, very much most people would require a fire team. Exo challenges was a nice addition for like solo players to be able to get a reasonably decently easy pinnacle. Again, some people wouldn't consider it easy, but reasonably soloable pinnacle. I think was needed. So that is one side of it for sure. But again, I think that they could have gone more in terms of having a specific drop. Well, it didn't have to be an exotic. It could have just been another legendary that had some cool rolls on it, that you could get random rolls on or something. That would have been cool too. I think that would have been cool too. Subs are 390, I think. Calling for May, I think so. Oh, it was a question. Yeah, we don't know. My thought process, right, is so this season starts February 9th, and it should be about 13 weeks, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm looking at my calendar right now. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That would put us May 11th-ish. May 11th would be the third season of the year then. I feel like that is pretty likely when VOG would come out. Like, I don't know if it would be at the start of a season. It really depends. They did say that it's going to come out storyline wise. Like there's going to be some story attached to Vault of Glass, like coming back. It's not just like, here's Vault of Glass, I don't know where it was, it just came back out of nowhere. Like there's going to be some reasoning to why it's back. So it could be in the middle of a season type thing. Like this season that we're about to have could lead up to it, and we could get it towards the end of this season. It could be a lead into the next season where we get it like right at the drop of next season. It could be like something that gets led into next season that we get it a couple weeks into next season. If I had to guess, again, I would assume May to June, June area would be my most likely thoughts on when we're getting Vault of Glass. Is that correct? No idea. Have no idea, but that would be my personal guess. Needs to be a new tier of weapons like dark exotics and get rid of all the blues and have them as world drops and not in pass you need to earn them. That's another thing, right? The D1 to D2, right? For those of that played D1, and Brower I know, or was it, maybe it was Cardiac, maybe it was Brower 2. This was briefly talked about very recently. Like D1, especially early on, like, well, even legendaries were like insanely rare. Like they were legendary to get them, right? And exotics were like, bro, like it was literally, and I've mentioned this specific wordage before. Getting an exotic was like the best day of your life. Like obviously that's like a little bit over the top, but like getting an exotic was insanely hype, insanely rare. Like you were like feeling yourself for getting an exotic. Doesn't even matter which one. If you got one you wanted, holy shit. But like if you got one at all, you were chilling. Like oh my god, this is great. Obviously in D2 that is not the case. Like legendaries drop like candy bars, exotics drop like maybe 2 candy bars, like, or again, like especially the season pass idea where you buy the season pass, you get the exotic immediately. That doesn't feel so great to me, honestly. I understand the idea. If you buy the thing, you're getting the thing, sure, but like I agree. I'd like to see a new tier of weapons as well. I'd like to see a rarer tier of weapons. And again, to be fair, we could talk about Eyes of Tomorrow, the fact that I've done the raid over 150 times, 30 plus looted clears. There's other people out here that have done 20 plus, 30 plus looted clears, also don't have it. That's pretty rare. But like for me, I like that. I actually like that. I will like meme about it and be like, but like I like the fact that I have something to chase and continue to chase for. I think the other end of that would potentially be either A, having some sort of like, I'm not sure what the word would be, but like protection against it, like somewhere along the lines where you either have a better chance or an eventual chance of getting it with like through currency of some way, or B, not being locked out of only being able to do it 3 times a week. Like one of those two things would be nice in a system in which something was like really, really rare to get. But I do like really, really rare things. I do think it's a good idea. That EOT, that was, yeah, so Shin's on there. What's the drop percentage on EOT was a bit higher? I don't necessarily think, I don't wish that. I wish there was a way, I wish either A, basically the two things I just said, either A, every single time you opened the chest you had a chance, didn't matter if it was 3 clears in a week, or B, let's say that they capped the spoils at a little bit higher, because I feel like 240 would be too cheap, honestly. That's only 12 raids. I feel like if they could cap it at like, I don't know, 500-ish, and then you could spend 500 just to straight up buy it, I think either one of those systems would be good by me. Because I like the rarity of it. I think that having the rarity, but having a secondary like something with it would be good. Also, Goots, I appreciate you, sir. You have a great night, friend. Um, what was it? Brower said something. Maybe scale likelihood of it dropping to level of a strike from the playlist through Master and have Grandmaster being an adept version. That way, even if not team and people matchmake, there's a smaller chance of getting the strike-specific loot drop. I like that. I like that a lot. And what didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, right, for Cloud Strike, is supposedly, I don't know if this is 100% factual, but everything I've heard is no matter which playlist you did the Empire hunts in, you had the same chance to get Cloud Strike. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. That what you said, Brower, makes a ton of sense, right? Where it's like, if I want to go in and get Palindrome, if I just run the whatever the lowest adept, I think it's the adept version of Nightfalls, I can get it. I can run in. I can go in with 2 blueberries. There's no champions. I can run through this pretty simply. Doesn't matter. And I have a pretty damn low chance to get it, but I could get it. And then second level a little bit higher, third level a little bit higher, master level, maybe even like a guaranteed drop at master level, or very, very high chance, and then grandmaster, like definitely a guaranteed drop, and depending on how strong and how many different things there are for adept, maybe even a guaranteed adept, or a very, very high chance of an adept, or something. Again, it depends on how many different possible adept weapons there are. Like if it's just like, if there was a curated adept system and you just got one guaranteed and just had to run like 3 GMs, that doesn't seem like very interesting to me. But if it's like, a very like a decent amount of different perks that you could potentially get, then I feel like you should, every single GM you run, you should get one, right? So it really kind of depends on those types of things. Surgical coming in, dropping that 45 bits. How you doing tonight, sir? We are talking about Mr. This Week at Bungie in the house here. I'm a couple minutes behind in chat, but I promise I'm getting caught up. If I miss anybody's messages, please feel free to put them in chat again. Definitely don't mean to skip them. I'm just trying to, keep up with things the best I can and keep chatting for sure. Vog and D1 is your favorite raid. Vog was a fun raid, man. I don't know if I consider it my favorite, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I have a lot of good memories for sure. Galley Red Death, last word in D1. Oh man, Red Death. Still only have 3 legendary weapons and 1 exotic and 1 legendary armor you can't put on yet. Greatest analogy ever. It's because you're a gamer, Todd. I like the randomness and RNG of weapons in D1. That's why I'm not a fan of Umbrals. Too focused. You can easily get exactly what you want. I agree, Omar, 100% with every single word you said there. The thing is, for me personally, I think that both are important. We talked about this briefly at the very beginning of our chat. I think having both ends of that is important. So, like, the end game stuff, right? Where, raids, trials, that type of stuff. Or GMs, whatever else. Like, the end game stuff where you're getting, like, really... And there's an important distinction here, right? It's important that type of stuff, A, is meaningfully better than the Umbrals, right? Like, if I can get something for Umbrals and get a God Roll Umbral, and, like, the God Roll of that is better than a similar version of, the raid weapon or the trials weapon or the GM weapon, whatever you want to consider your endgame content of choice, that is a problem. That is a problem, and that cannot be a thing. That debalances the game. That makes people not feel like that they need to like push themselves into the endgame content. It makes the endgame content devalued. That cannot and should not be a thing. But I feel like, there is a large swath of people that are very, into the game, but maybe don't want to do raids or don't do raids or don't have time for raids or just really only want to play Gambit. Like, they just love Gambit, like, whatever it may be. And being able to play your piece of content that you want to do and get a large number of the weapons, and be able to potentially even still go for the, like, because there's hardcore players that don't play the quote hardcore content, right? Like, most people wouldn't consider Gambit hardcore content, or like the regular Strike playlist hardcore content, but there are people that play that content hardcore, if that makes sense. Like, play it a lot, play it like tons of them, right? And like, they should have a way to kind of grind out and get cool stuff too, right? And I feel like having that kind of like, a decent amount of weapons in a pool that you can, grind out a bunch of umbrals by doing any one of those pieces of content, and then going in and like, this is the weapon I want. I want to get like 50 of them. I want the exact masterwork. I want the exact scope. I want the exact, like these 2 perks. And you can still do that, right? But then again, like I said originally, having the raids or trials or GMs or whatever, having weapons that they just need to be stronger than those weapons. Like that is what makes sense. And I feel like Deepstone did a pretty good job of that. I feel like perks like Reconstruction are really strong perks, right? I think that's a really, really strong perk on pretty much every weapon it rolls on. I feel like they could go even a little bit further in terms of the strength of those weapons, to make it feel like it's worth your effort and your time to do the difficult content. I think I think both ends of that are very important. Compare Eyes rocket launcher to the galley. No one screams when they got that. I've had people scream when they got Eyes of Tomorrow. Absolutely, absolutely. There's a difference. Well, and Galley was too strong. Like Galahorn, the problem with Galahorn, right? And we could argue that Eyes of Tomorrow is not good enough, whatever else. And who knows? We have the rocket buff in this TWAB. But Galahorn, the problem with Galahorn, right? There cannot be an exotic that you get it and you just use it everywhere. Like that was a problem that was not good. Like it debalances the game. It was the same issue with like Mountaintop and Recluse. And those weren't even exotics. So like those types of things, there needs to be like multiple options and multiple choices. And you could argue that it's like, okay, Galahorn's up here, why can't you just bring everything else up there? The problem with that again becomes power creep, and then the content becomes too easy. And it's already like, it's already sometimes difficult to have that difficult content, especially for those of us that have like every weapon, super curated builds, like play the game a ridiculous amount, play all the really crazy content, do all the flawlesses and the solo flawlesses. Like it's already hard enough to like make that content difficult, but then if we are also super OP with what we have to use, on top of that, it makes that content even like easier, and or Bungie has to make it even more ridiculously difficult, which then like shrinks and shrinks and shrinks the amount of people that can actually do it. So it's yeah. Also, hi Jay, how you doing, friend? Welcome in. To be fair, I didn't scream when I got Galahorn either. Got him. Man. I missed the progress system on guns, like 2,000 kills with a pulse, and have the exotic chance if you complete a stupid amount of kills with that weapon, like 10,000 kills. Give a better chance to get the exotic like the Crux. That was really only the Crux, though, really. Like, there weren't too many weapons that were like that. I mean, I thought when I read the first part, I thought you were kind of talking about leveling your weapons, which I personally kind of miss, but, like, the problem is, like, I'd say 95% of the player base absolutely despised that system. I was one of the 5% that was like, this is cool. Like, I have to actually use the weapon to level it up and get, like, unlock all the perks and do all that. Like, I thought that was cool. Again, I'm a very, very much the minority of that. In terms of what you're saying with that part, I would say it is, again, that was really only the Crux. I wouldn't mind a system like that. I feel like using weapons to either, like, upgrade it or get something in that way, which I guess the Crux was kind of like that, where you upgraded it from, 80 on Ally, and I forget what the 80 on Allies was the second one, I think. I know Necrochasm was the last one. But yeah, you could, like, upgrade it by, getting something and using it. I think that idea is really cool. I think it would be a little bit misinterpreted to say that was really ever a system in D1, like that one specific weapon, sure. But, and again, I think I personally would like that stuff. I think that very much minority of the ideas of people thinking that, though. Also, Cardiac coming in and dropping that gifted sub to Surgical for 19 months. I appreciates it, Frank. Can we get some hype in the chat? I would appreciate it. I'm getting caught up. I promise, guys. I promise I'm getting caught up. I appreciate it, though, sir. Or Cardiac. I appreciate you, friend. And Surge, make sure to thank Mr. Cardiac for that. Got home from work, read the TWAB. I really don't know what to say. I'm not too happy, nor am I super excited, but it is what it is with this game called Destiny. I think it's... Let's keep talking. Let's keep talking about this. Let's see if we can get some more hype about it, right? Let's get some more hype. Farm from Good Philo, Falling Guillotine, or Gnawing Hunger with Umbrals. Really like how some good rolls with Heritage Succession are, and I'm still searching for a God roll 4 rolls in. Right. 100%. And I think with that, right, Brower, what would be a really cool system, and they've kind of briefly talked about going into next season, is if you could get the weapons. Let's talk about the Umbrals there. You can get the weapons from Umbrals. You can get a lot of different rolls. You can get a lot of good rolls from Umbrals. But what if there were certain specific roles that were really like the best probably that you could only get from, let's say, the dungeons or whatever else piece of content, because they did specifically talk about that. I think it was last week's TWAB or maybe 2 weeks ago. I could look at it again, but I feel like I remember it decently enough to not have to specifically find it. But they specifically mention that the things that they're bringing back from the Moon and Dreaming City, there would be certain rolls on those weapons. And I think the Premonition Pulse Rifle, literally the weapon itself, could literally only drop from the dungeon, but certain rolls on those weapons that could only drop from the dungeon, right? And I think that that's a really nice system where, you know, you could get it from, and I don't know if those things will be in Umbrals per se, but other pieces of content. You can get it from other pieces of content that aren't so like endgame requiring a team game type of thing. But if I want to get the best rolls and like these super unique rolls, then I have to do X, Y, or Z thing. And I feel like that, again, fits a really good kind of middle ground of like, okay, if I don't have a ton of time, or if I don't have time to find a team, or if I don't have people to play with, I don't have to. I don't have to. I can still get the things. If I do put in the extra time to play the harder content, to find a team, to play with a team, then I get better stuff. And I think that's how game systems and loot and all that should work. That is just like makes sense to me, honestly. Is anarchy is a problem? I would say, I mean, anarchy's strong. It's very strong. Don't get me. Anarchy is very, very strong. But there is definitely cases where anarchy is just straight up not good. It basically didn't work against Insurrection Prime or Garden of Salvation boss that I still don't remember the name of. Because I just hate them so much. It basically just didn't work against those bosses. It doesn't work against shields because it just bounces off of them. You could still use them if you like plant something next to a shield and kind of break it, but it bounces off of shields, so that's a little bit of a downside there. Take that as you will. There's not a lot of downsides. Don't get me wrong. Like, Anarchy's a really good weapon. But then there's also, you know, Xenophage is really good. Lament, although they're nerfing swords. Like there are other weapons that are at least in the ballpark of things and such, if you will. Also, Alice coming in, dropping 500 bits. Too kind, friend. How are you doing tonight? I'm probably a couple minutes behind in chat. I will get caught up as soon as I can. But welcome, Alice. Make sure we get a shout out for Alice if we haven't already. I don't know if the sound effect, somebody probably did her command, but my sound effects aren't working for some reason. We're getting caught up, I promise. I'm dying. I'm good. I swear. Joe, thank you for the water. I need a double. Jesus. Make sure to not try to talk while drinking water. Very bad. Very, very bad. Oh, man. I'm good. What do I feel about the power creep argument? I had a shield that allowed you to literally one-shot bosses. Let me get caught up a little bit, Todd, and I'd like to talk about that actually. Also, Cardia, thank you for the water too. Hold on, I got you. Because that is definitely true. There's definitely possibilities there. Also, Kitty dropping that gifted sub to Alice. Too kind friends. We're getting caught up, I promise. Kitty, I appreciate you, friend, and Alice, welcome back to the sub club. I appreciate you both. Optimus Prime, Optimus Prime, good stuff. Right, no, that's a good point, Scrub. I had heard about that. The Overflow Explosive Payload Night Watch, and I went. That's a perfect idea of like, this gives me a reason to play content. Like, it's the frickin' New Light quest. Why the hell do I care about the New Light quest? I don't. Nobody would play that. I mean, maybe you would. I mean, I still maybe would play it just to see what it's like. But like, I don't care about it. But then it's like, oh look, there's a cool weapon that you could only get here. Like, makes you play it. To be fair, I did not play. There was the Overflow Rampage, Gnawing Hunger, that could only drop from whatever the heck that thing is that I also can't remember the name of because I despise that activity. But like, you know, they at least gave the option. Pay attention to me. I'm paying attention. Hi, Alice. How are you doing? I inhaled water. I did. It was bad. We're good. We're fine. Too much raid juice. All right, we're almost caught up. I swear. Take a breath. I know. We're good. The Alice command is there, I think, right? It's breathtaking. I just don't know if the sound will work. Yeah, it's still there. My sounds just aren't working on any of them. Um, but okay, you're Reckoning. Thank you guys. Reckoning, Reckoning. Love that. Love that piece of content. TWAB is good. I need more. I'm disappointed in Crimson Days being removed. It's your favorite PvP. I enjoyed Crimson Days actually. Crimson Days was pretty fun. Um, I see the crazy thing is right. Is again we can go skip down there again. Like, couldn't they have just brought back old Crimson Days? But then people would also be like, oh, but like they're just repeating the same content, like blah blah blah, like they're just it's a copy paste from last year, like so like they can't win for losing, they can't lose for winning, like either they bring back the exact same thing because they didn't bother with it and people complain, or they get rid of it and you know and it's still a problem. But I feel you guys. Yo, Alice gifting that sub to Cat. What you guys doing? You guys crazy. You guys are too kind, too kind. We get some loves. Get some loves and hype in the chat. I appreciate it, seriously. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun, Dragon. Honestly, the Crimson Days things was really was a cool different thing to me. Like, not everything has to be like brand new or like have crazy awesome loot attached to it. In my opinion, it's just I don't know. I don't know. Just make new stuff all the time. I don't know what's the problem. Yeah, true. But I do want to talk about that, right, Todd? So there's the power creep thing, right? And so I've never played Borderlands. You said right, Borderlands. I've never played Or I played like a tiny bit of Borderlands. So how could you explain to me how that works a little bit? Yeah, probably lyric, probably, or at least a significant portion. Because we still honestly haven't really talked about the TWAB that much. We've been talking about like kind of adjacent things to the TWAB, which is great. I love chatting about it. But we're like here-ish. I don't know. No, we didn't even get through that. We got to like here. We got to like the first like part maybe. So we're chilling. But yeah, Todd, if you're still there, let me know like how Borderlands works with like that type of stuff. I would very much like to know. Want to say hi and I miss you and we gotta play something soon, please. Gotta lurk and continue doing some work. Yo, Alice, absolutely. Name your price. We play all the things. I'm down. I'm totally down. But I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon, for sure. Run the story, do side missions, level up easy. The rarity and the level of the weapon dictates how good the weapon is in Borderlands. I mean, that's still the same as Destiny, basically, right? Like, so what's like different? Like, what's different between Borderlands and Destiny then, right? And so like, how is that power creep argument? I know, Todd. Let me go back again. Look at what games like Borderlands does with their loot. You had a shield that allowed you to literally one-shot bosses. I guess, so like, would you say, but like, so there's this harder bosses then, like, right? Like, cause like, you couldn't just one-shot everything, right? Cause that would become kind of dumb, I would think. Maybe not. Like, maybe it's still somehow fun. Like, there has to be, like, so is it some sort of thing where, like, let's say you're at tier like there's tier 1, like I don't even know what to call it, but like, you know, tier 1, you get like you kill the boss of tier 1, you get whatever weapon you're talking about, and now you're able to like one shot the tier 1 bosses type thing. But then you go to like, then there's like harder bosses of tier 2 where that no longer can do that type of thing. Like I'm not sure exactly how that would work or how it would follow. Season challenges are cool. Crossplay needs to hurry sooner than later. I'm hopeful. Crossplay in my brain still. I'm very happy that they specifically talked about crossplay in here again. I know it's later in the TWAB, but I promise we will get to that eventually. I'm very happy that they mentioned it again, right? Because you know, those types of things can very easily be like, oh, it just kind of went away and then like it gets delayed or something. But the fact that they brought it up again and are continuously bringing it up makes me feel like it's, you know, on pace for Witch Queen at least. I'm honestly thinking it's probably going to be closer to Witch Queen than not when it actually gets released. If it's earlier, awesome. But we'll have to see. Borderlands doesn't have PvP, so it doesn't have to balance. I vehemently, so I mean this in the nicest of ways, I vehemently disagree with that concept. Like, which we will talk about in a second. But I vehemently disagree with the concept that just because something is like PvP, like I don't think that just because something is in PvE, it doesn't have to be balanced. Like I think that that is a complete lie that people's, not lie, like I'm not, like lie sounds like wrong, but like I feel like that is like personally, just in my bones disagree with that idea, right? And because like for me, difficulty is everything. Like difficulty, well, not everything, but like there has to be like challenge. Like challenge to me is the game. Um, no, I'm not like this is not directed at you, Brower, whatsoever. I've heard that as not even a joke. Like I've heard that as a direct like idea, right? And I vehemently disagree with that thought process. Also, hello, Martian, welcome in. Um, but like, so if you can become so strong that every piece of content becomes, just whatever. There's a word for this, but like it just becomes like a joke, right? Then there's no longer a challenge. The thing is, right? So power creep. There is the possibility of like basically infinitely scaling content, and I really actually like that idea. Like where, again, there is like the base piece of content. You play that, you can get really cool stuff or whatever, and then you can play like a second tier of it, and that is like more difficult, and you need like basically need a certain level of gear and content to be able to beat that piece of content. And then you play that piece of content and you beat that, you get cool stuff from that, and then you'll maybe be able to beat the third level of the content, and then the fourth level of the content. And mind you, this is all like the same content really, it's just kind of scaling on it, which again, a lot of people have mixed feelings, I would say, on the Nightfall system, right, with the ordeal. But to me, that is like the start of a system that's similar in scope to that, and I feel like that's a really promising idea. Like the fact that that's all the same piece of content, really really easy for them to be able to develop on, because it's like they make the same amount of content, but then can use it literally like 4 times, 5 times, infinite potentially amount of times, depending on how hard or how high you want to scale. But I feel that would be a really cool system if they brought that into more and more things. Again, even like Empire hunts are now kind of in that same system or that same type of scope. The problem again, to me, is if in that system again comes down to the value of loot, right? If I can play the most easy part of that system, like the lowest level, and I can play the highest level of that system, and I get the same loot in both of them, and there's like no unique loot at the top end, what's the point of playing the top end, right? Like that's the issue. Is it, to me, that comes down to is just the value of loot in some of that higher level stuff. And like if there was really cool, really unique loot in that higher level stuff, and then that could even potentially scale even to even more higher levels, that would be amazing to me, right? That would be like the best thing ever. But again, that requires them to be more willing to kind of abandon a large portion of the player base, right? Of people that that kind of talk about the fact like, oh, I'm a solo player. Oh, I don't have people to play with. Oh, I don't have teams to play with. Oh, I'm not good enough. Like and those people, they are either A, abandoning, or B, forcing them to find a way to either like practice and become better. And I think honestly in a lot of cases it's not that those people aren't good enough, they just haven't tried. But like that type of stuff, it would very much alienate, very much alienate a large portion of the player base. Again, I am someone that has people to play with, wants difficult content, wants cool stuff. Like for me, that would be insane. But I feel like there's a lot of people that it would not be great for. I would say. Um, People that played for deluxe edition should get beta access for crossplay to test bugs out. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll have to see. Difficulty is really in getting the weapon itself. Well, see, that was like D1 too, right? Once you get it, the game becomes pointless in Borderlands. Then see, that's not a great system then, right? Like that feels kind of poopy. What about getting high? What's up, Wide? How you doing, sir? Wanted to mention Borderlands 3 is working on this stuff because unique weapons, too high tier game, but Borderlands 2 doesn't have scale. Interesting. As getting balanced separately, exotic rock. Yeah, they're talking about that. They're talking about that for sure in this TWAB that I promise we will talk about here soon. But that was a good discussion. Like again, I would love that, right? I would love to see that power creep argument, right? The power creep argument, it doesn't necessarily have to have legs. The thing about power creep though, the power creep, the way they're playing out the power creep argument by by trying to like keep things relatively balanced, to me really benefits the the less hardcore, the people that don't have people to play with, that don't have teams that either want to play solo or do play solo. Um, Again, could they just go all in on like, okay, we're gonna go on the hardcore, we're gonna do it? Could they do that? Yes. Again, that would be they've never really done that before. They are definitely consistently trying to play both ends. And again, even the Umbral system versus stuff like raids and trial system, they try really 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 hard to kind of give stuff to both ends of the spectrum, which is really that's kind of a defining part of Destiny to me, is the fact that it's so open to both super casual, super hardcore, and everywhere in the middle. Like you can be anywhere in that system and have things to do and feel mostly pretty good in the game. Again, I know there's some issues now or here or there or whatever else, but like they really do try to kind of give something for everybody. And I don't think a lot of games do that. A lot of games either are or become super casual or super hardcore, and it's one or the other. Like if you're not this and trying to play the game, it's not going to be a good time, right? And I think Destiny really really tries to avoid that. Again, is that good? Is that bad? That's up to each individual person. But I think it is just kind of the way it is. So we'll have to see. But let's talk about more. The one thing that I like, right? So we're still talking about the challenges here for a moment, I suppose. But I do like the concept here, right? Of where is it actually? Right here. So not all the challenges require that level of accomplishment. And I guess I can talk about this, right? So we have defeating primeval envoys and Gambit. These are just examples of things that are going to be challenges, right? Defeating enemies in the Nightfall with seasonal weapons, gaining infamy or valor, acquiring the ritual weapon and its cosmetics. So that'd be like Adored from this season. Winning rounds in trials, Monka, completing a Grandmaster Nightfall. So like these are examples of things that you could do. But the nice thing that is definitely really important is this, but the harder or longer the challenge is, the more experience it rewards, right? So I like them going further in this direction. Again, at least me personally, further in the direction of either difficulty or lengthiness or grindiness gives you better stuff. While that's experience is kind of whatever, probably I would assume that would also maybe be higher chunks of like Bright Dust or whatever else. And I'd like to see this be across the game, right? Like whatever it may be. I'd like to see more of this type of idea and this type of thought process from them across everything, right? The more difficult something is, the more length of time that something takes, the better you get stuff. So yeah. Duke is GM Nightfall carries next season. This is leaked. I would like to do so. I don't know if I'm good enough, man. I mean, it's practice though, right? Like even when I literally just said like, oh yeah, no, if people say they're not good enough, a lot of it's just not willing to put it in, to try, right? And I feel like that's another system of like being, and carries is a very strong word, but like being able to do helps and being able to like bring in people and do those things with. I think if I'm able to put in the time or willing to put in the time and practice, right? It's just like a raid. Like if I run the raid 5 times, I'm nowhere near as good as if I run the raid 150 times. If I run the GM, 5 times, not even probably for most of them. If I run it like 50 times, I'm going to be a lot better. I'm going to know like little things about it that we can figure out different places to go. So I'm hopeful. That is definitely a goal for next season, is to be able to do GM helps. So we'll have to see. You're waiting for Outriders. I am very intrigued by Outriders. That's supposed to be an open beta, right, kid? If that's open beta, and I'm assuming it would be allowed to be streamed, I will most likely stream that at least once. I'm definitely intrigued by that game. Heard Goff all was in a worse place than Anthem. Oh, Godfall? Yeah, I'm not sure. What's Godfall? I've heard of that, I feel like, but I'm not sure. Also, Ruku, welcome in. Hello, friend. How are you doing tonight? We are just we're talking TWAB. We're talking like stuff kind of associated with the TWAB. Having some good times. And so yeah, this stuff we kind of already talked about earlier. We kind of skipped ahead. Yeah, so challenges. I think we got all sorts of different things. I think challenges we kind of talked about. Again, I think this is a cool system. It is more flexible than the way it is now. It seems like we're getting more rewarded than the way we have it now, and but it also benefits like all types of people, right? It benefits you if you're playing multiple characters and you can, get these things done on all your characters. It benefits you if you only play one character because you don't have to play multiple characters to do all these things. It's again more flexible if I only can play like week 4 and I can still go back and do the first 3 weeks. That's I think the super TLDR of this type of stuff. And then yeah, so Bright Dust we again also kind of mentioned slightly. Each of the Strike, Crucible, and Gambit seasonal challenges reward between 75 and 300 Bright Dust. If you complete... Oh, so this is... Well, that's interesting. So if you complete nearly all of the seasonal challenges, you get a single 4,000 Bright Dust pile. So that's a pretty nice chunk. 4,000 Bright Dust for, for those completionists in us, or at least nearly completionists in us. It gives you another reason to kind of, try to be a completionist, right? Or it gives you the benefit of that rather other than just like I'm a completionist, I want to do it all. Like it's an actual, somewhat tangible benefit. So I like that. I think that's cool. Oh, for sure, Brower, for sure. I'm hopeful to be a reliable fire team member for the GMs as well. Honestly, I know like I can like do my thing, but like I'd like to be able to do more. I'd like to be able to do more for sure. And yeah, Outriders is cool. More flexible. I'm alright. Hope I've been well. I've been good. I've been alright, Ryuku. I've been alright, man. We've been doing our thing, man. Raids and such. But today we're just chatting. We're doing a nice long talk on the TWAB and all that type of stuff. I just want to play with one tune. Can't wait till I don't need to have a warlock or a titan at all and just be the hunter I was born to be. Well, this is kind of beneficial to that, right? Like even if you have 3 characters, like you don't have like none of this stuff really looks like you're gonna have to run more than one character. Again, there is one part down here. So like this, you can do all the. It looks like you can do all the challenges on one character if you want to. You can obviously very easily do the whole season pass on one character if you want to. There is one deficit here of you can get 120 Bright Dust per ritual vendor per character per week if you do the 8 bounties. So like you'd be losing out theoretically on 720 Bright Dust a week, which is kind of a lot, honestly. But like, I think that there should be benefits to playing multiple characters, but like it's hard to balance that, right? It's really hard to balance like having some benefits to playing multiple characters without being like too crazily. And I mean, there's always going to be the benefit, assuming there's the raid lockouts as there are now, to having multiple characters, just because it's 1 loot per week versus 3. Like that's pretty huge. I mean, but even that for this specific raid, excuse me, they kind of brought it back at least a little bit in the fact that you get the 20 extra tokens every time you run the raid, even if you've already run the raid before, so you don't get the extra like loot per run, and you don't get the chance at the eyes per run if you were to run only one character. But if you ran 3 raids on one character versus 3 raids on 1 on each character, it is definitely at least closer to similar this season than ever. It's more close. Not that it's still not that close, but that's part of why I started messing around with the solo GM, both as a challenge for me and as a way to get myself better, because if I can do that by myself without stalling, then I should in theory be able to run with people and not have too many issues with things. True. The one thing with people, though, Cardiac, that then still kind of comes into play, right, is there is the added part of, like, the unknown, right? Of, like, if you are by yourself, you know what you are going to do. You know what you're about to do. But if, like, you don't necessarily get the practice of, like, oh, what if this person like randomly does like X thing that like baits the guy in a weird spot, or like dies here and I wasn't expecting it, or like, so that type of stuff is still a little bit flexible. You got to be flexible on. But I mean, obviously, if you can solo GM, you're an absolute god gamer, so it doesn't. All that is kind of extra. Down to 1 more GM to get Conqueror. Let's go, XD. Let's go, dude. Glassway, Monka S, dude. Absolute Monka S. Glassway, like, for those of you that have done any amounts of GMs, or for those of you that have done every GM that's been out, like, Glassway, let me just tell you, Glassway is, like, so much harder than, like, any other like, it's actually stupid ridiculous, man. Like, I don't know. I know there are some strats I've seen people run that, like, made it not so bad, but, like, Glassway, you gotta, like, think more than, like, play, if that makes sense. Like, Glassway is almost like a raid, even though there's no like actual mechanics. Like there's the mechanics are trying to deal with the overloads and the wyverns in a like preemptive way, because it's actually insane. Like Glassway is just gnarly, absolutely gnarly. And again, I would say no GM is like easy. Even Lake of Shadows, like you still had to be on like your P's and Q's, and there was a couple tough spots in there, honestly. And Lake of Shadows was by far the easiest one. Like, so even that one, like, wasn't just easy. But, like, every GM is hard, but Glassway is, like My God, dude. My God. Watching those wyverns make you say no. It's crazy, the wyverns, dude. And yeah, the amount of champions too, right? There, I think there's, isn't there? I think there's 8 wyverns, 8 overloads, and 8 anti-barriers in the boss room alone. Like, bruh, bruh, craziness. Things from your nightmares. Absolutely, dude. I can see what you're saying for sure, but at the same time, if it could be more comfortable and better, be in a more of a go mode to where, if anything, I might be the one that's pushing the ads to move in certain ways. I had to see it working. Execution is always the unknown. No, I mean, I don't. I am just. That's an additional thing, right? Like, if you can solo the GM, I think A and really all that matters. If you can solo the GM, the confidence that that would give you, like, would be like over 9,000, right? Like, at least like that's the way I would look at it. Like, I'm never even gonna buy. Like, there is almost no world in which I will ever have the patience or anything else or the skill or the like whatever involved to solo a GM. Like, that is just it's not happening. Like, I just don't see that happening. But if you are able to do that, and like the practice that you get from that is definitely beneficial, for sure. And time, patience and time, absolutely. All right. I think we can get to the sandbox things now, huh? I think we talked about a bunch of stuff there. We kind of touched on a couple of these things, but we can get to more of it. All right. So we got some targeted changes and preparations for crossplay. Wonka. In preparation for crossplay, they said it twice. Crossplay? Oh my god, coming later this year. Anyways, we're making some changes to the recoil stat. Currently, several weapon archetypes have the recoil reduced by around 40% dependent on archetype when using mouse and keyboard. This results in an issue where players on mouse and keyboard are able to largely ignore the stability weapon stat, creating unintended discrepancies in weapon performance between controllers and mouse and keyboard. The following weapon archetypes will have their mouse and keyboard recoil adjusted closer to controller, reduce the difference from 40% to 20%. Auto rifle, scouts, pulse rifle. This was absolutely needed. Like, all these other ones, we can argue. And actually, hand cannons are a little, but like like submachine guns, the difference between submachine guns on mouse and keyboard and controller is like absolutely stupid. Like, absolutely stupid. Like, this, like, anybody, I don't care. You can argue any other ones. Like, submachine gun, this was not fair. Like, the difference between controller and mouse keyboard it was not fair. Like, it was actually stupid. Like, recluse, the fact that, like, I remember watching Glad, and no hate on anybody here whatsoever, but I remember watching Glad use recluse from, like, when doing a low man Galran, from like literally the opposite wall to Galran's head, holding it fully down and hitting like every single shot. And I know Glad is a god, obviously, but like I completely disagree it's even possible, remotely possible, to have done that with a controller. And like that, like the just like submachine guns, that was not okay. Like, some of these other ones, whatever, and they're still making like 40% to 20%. How is this gonna feel? Who knows? But like, submachine guns, they needed to make like closer because like they were not anywhere near the same on mouse and keyboard versus controller. Like, auto rifles feel fine on both, I think. Again, I haven't done like a whole lot of the things. Hand cannons are always gonna be stronger on mouse and keyboard just because of, the accuracy that you can have. But that's whatever. Like, that, there's really nothing they can do to change that. This is the one. This is the one that needed it. This other one's whatever. Yeah. And honestly, like, machine guns maybe a little bit, just especially in the super high fire rate ones, because then they almost become submachine guns. I think that's a thing. Getting through or a severely underrated sniper rifle. Bring it back, please, Bungo. Wait, what sniper was that? Oh, patience and time. That's what we're talking about. Getting through the season, earning Conqueror is a big confidence thing with me, and with teams made up of 3 people, I think confidence in my own decisions during GMs this season has been a weakness for me. It's hard. The thing with GMs, right, is like, it's so difficult because like, if you walk out in the wrong spot, it's like, bro, just like, you're just dead. You're just dead, dude. Like, it's so spooky, dude. Screwing all the metas in one foul swoop. Still 20% better than controller, 20%. See, and that's true. See, that step 1 is that's true. And better is arguable, right? Because, and again, people will say this, and it is, there is, there is aim assist on controllers, there is XYZ, there's like, they're different. They're just different. Like that's the thing. Like one's not better per se. Like just because it has less recoil, more recoil, doesn't necessarily just directly make it better. Obviously, again, mouse and keyboard can be more precise. It just can. That's why controllers have aim assist. Controller cannot be as precise. Like at the top end, it cannot be as precise, no matter how great you are. Yeah, I mean, if you're insane with controller, again, you can be very precise, but you can't be as precise. Like mouse and keyboard is literally a precision instrument. It's why we don't use controllers to like use our computer in the first place, right? Like that wouldn't make any sense. But again, it'll make it closer. And again, I think submachine guns. That's the thing. Just get rid of weapon kick. Controller feels blah. I personally feel like controller feels good. Honestly, like I feel like I personally, again, this is gonna be a little bit of a probably unpopular opinion. I feel like mouse and keyboard felt too good. Like not feel like too good is not a thing, but like it's just too much of a laser with a lot of these, right? It just it didn't have recoil, right? It doesn't mean you could just aim. Like you had to still aim. Like you had to like get to the target and shoot the thing. Like you had to be on it. It wasn't free. It wasn't easy. That's not at all what I'm saying. Very carefully choosing my words to not say that. But like once you're on the target, like it was a laser beam. It's a laser beam, and like that to me again, and again I know there's the argument of PvP, PvE. It would feel very bad if the weapons fired differently in PvP and PvE. We can talk damages, we can talk all that type of stuff. That doesn't feel as bad. If the gun has like literally different recoil in PvP and PvE, that would feel bad. Secondly, I still go back to that same argument of like just because it's PvE doesn't mean it shouldn't be balanced, right? Like I feel that being able to just laser beam a target and not miss a shot like ever. No, I mean that's not true, but like laser beam a target and just like hit like headshots pretty consistently if you're on the target. I feel like that adds a little bit more difficulty back into it in a different way, right? Because people argue that being forced underleveled is a like a not real way to make it more skill. I forget there's a word people use, but like people will say that where it's like, oh, it's or champions are like a fake way to make it more skilled, or being forced under leveled is a fake way. Like this is a direct way to like force you to change the way you're playing and have more recoil. Like that is like this is the most like direct, like this requires more things and more like just difficulty or what I don't know what the word I want to use is, but like don't hate me. It's just you know what I'm saying? Like it just adds a little bit more. It adds more difficulty in a more direct way that isn't like champions or like levels or whatever else. What's up, Draps? How's it going? Welcome in. Point and click's a whole different thing. True. Because people use controller and PC for PvP, the aim assist the controllers have, you give them less recoil with that, and everyone will be bitching and moaning about it. A lot of people are doing so now. It'd make Crucible a nightmare. Everybody would want to use controller, which I think they're trying to do the whole player way instead of saying go ahead and just play with a controller, right? True. Like I mean that's a thing, right? I mean people already complain about the aim assist and all that, so it's tough. It's tough. I hope they don't force crossplay between console and PC. Agreed. PvP crossplay needs to be an option. I think this is like straight up just like I don't think there's really any argument against this what I'm about to say. PvE crossplay. Like I feel like PvE crossplay should be there. It adds more people into the queues, better queue times, better connections, all that type of stuff. And I mean people will say PvE connection, but like connection still matters in PvE. So PvE, put it in crossplay. We should be good to go. PvP. I think people have said they don't want any crossplay in PvP. I disagree with that very much because, there's people out there that just want to play with their friends. Like, what if I'm on Xbox and somebody's on PC? I just want to play with them. Like, I don't care about the competitive part of it. I don't really care if we win or lose. I just want to play with my friend. And, like, I feel like having that option of, like, okay, I'm on Xbox, they're on PC, now we're crossplayed, and having that option should be there. I don't think it should be forced whatsoever. I feel like if I'm on Xbox and I'm either solo or just playing with Xbox people or even just playing with console people, let's say, I should only play with console people. But obviously if I'm myself on Xbox and playing with somebody on PC or vice versa or whatever else, then obviously we are cross-playing, so then we're in the cross-play playlist. And I feel like that makes sense. Obviously there are potential like technical things that go along with that. So hopefully they can make sure all those technical things work. But that's, I mean, how most crossplay stuff works in my brain. Like I know Fortnite does that, where it's like if you're on, I think actually Fortnite changed. I think Fortnite was, like crossplay, but then they changed it to like, um, input device crossplay, where like if you were playing, even if you were on PC but played controller, it would like do that. Maybe they didn't, because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Because theoretically, you could plug in a controller and then like switch to mouse and keyboard mid game, and that would still be kind of broken. I could have swore that was a thing though. Maybe I don't know. But either way, I think PVE crossplay, PvP optional crossplay, great. That'd be great. Curious on how they will address team chat and crossplay. That's a very good point. That's a very. I mean, I'm personally worried about that just myself in terms of like doing raids and stuff. I mean, obviously Discord's a great option, but not everybody has Discord per se. I'm hopeful that people can find a way to be on Discord, whether they're on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, or Stadia, or whatever else. But if and when that time comes, obviously I'll kind of figure it out in terms of that. But in terms of like being able to communicate with your teammates directly, I mean, I personally almost always have the team stuff off, to be honest. But like it's definitely a good point in how like to be able to talk with people and all that type of stuff. Have your recluse and mountaintop back? It's crazy, forcing us to do a lot of stuff we probably don't want to do. What do you mean forcing us to do a lot of stuff we don't want to do? But recluse and mountaintop's another good example, right? Of like it was too strong, right? Like that stuff either needed to be nerfed or taken. I mean, they didn't need to sunset it per se. Like again, there's arguments of sunset versus just heavy nerfs versus whatever else. Um, it's it's all spooky. Let out for the next DSC mountaintop recluse anarchy. I mean, do it. Why not limit the input method for crossplay and PvP? You're right. Well, see again, that's the issue, right? Of how unless they can force it, so like once you're in the game, you can't change it. Then there could be problems. Again, that would be potential. That would be a good option or potential option. Especially because I know even there's what's it called? There's like a thing that you can basically have like a mouse and keyboard on Xbox, right? Like I think, or at least similar to a mouse and keyboard. Um, and I don't know if that's like I know at some point it like wasn't detectable and then it was detectable, and I thought there was like a way, like I thought that was part of all the things too with Fortnite, where they were able to like detect that, and then if you're using that they put you with mouse and keyboard people, or something like that. Again, I could be very mistaken with what I'm saying here, but I'm not sure. But yeah, see what Cardiac's saying is perfect, right? Like, hurry up and get here, crossplay. I want a game with Lyric Clay without having to spend $400 on a new console, right? Like, bro, like, and Destiny as a game is at its strongest when the community is like as big as possible and everybody's having a good time as possible. So like crossplay to me is such a huge deal when it comes to like a lot of this stuff. Again, I know people are worried about the PvP hacker side. I'm hopeful that they can kind of figure stuff out with that. But again, I'm personally not really that concerned with it because, again, assuming they do it correctly and don't force PvP crossplay, which again, that would be a catastrophe if they did that. Assuming they do it correctly, either A, if it's really a big problem, if they haven't really figured out hackers by then still, maybe just don't use the crossplay on PvP if you're not, willing to potentially deal with that. Or B, you know, use it and hope that there's no hackers. I mean, again, it's not a great concept. Again, the hacker side is, I don't think that's a reason to avoid crossplay, assuming they do it correctly and keep PvP separate if you want to be separate. And again, that also requires you to not then use crossplay yourself. But I think having an option, really, 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 really useful. There's a way in there even making new mouse, keyboards and mice for consoles. Interesting. Xbox exclusive content. Oh no. You don't want a game with me? The facade, dude. Well, holy crap, Lyric using big words. Show my paganist? Nah, dude. Don't need a third. Right. No, it's tough, right? Like, and even for me, right? There's times where it's like, oh, especially when we were doing the raid thing, like the whatever it was called, like before the season started, when all the raids came back. I don't remember what the actual like moments of triumph. Cardiac said moments. Thank you. Moments of triumph. And people needed like 18 different raids on both different platforms that I played on, and there'd be times where it's like we had like 2 or 3 on PC and 2 or 3 on Xbox that like needed a raid, right? And I'd have to run 2 separate raids for that. And again, that's fine. Like I'm cool with that. But it's like if we have crossplay rather than having like bringing these people in and then be like, oh, can anybody like help us just fill in the spots and run the raid? We could just be like, okay, take you guys, boom, we're in. Everybody that needs it got it. And I don't know. I cross again for me personally. I'm super biased when it comes to PvE crossplay. That's because I feel like it's gonna be huge. But I still think it'll be huge for a lot of people in terms of just the chance to play with a lot of friends and a lot more people and really build the communities a lot more connected. Um, that's true, Brower. It is free on Game Pass. That's very nice. Very, very nice stuff. But yeah, so keep continuing to talk. Again, some machine guns. Bleh. This is interesting. So this, I believe, yeah. So this is for everybody, right? So in the case of pulse rifles, submachine guns, and machine guns, introducing some buffs. In some cases, these weapons will actually have less recoil across both controller and mouse and keyboard compared to what is in game today. Which that's a little not worrisome, but like it kind of is interesting. I did say some cases, but like if submachine guns have less recoil across both, which I mean controller wouldn't be hard, but like if submachine guns have less recoil on mouse and keyboard, like that's possible. Like I don't know, but like definitely helpful. So like hopefully this kind of brings stuff in line. And I did mention specifically two of the three or both things I mentioned was submachine guns and machine guns, which I think were the most spooky. Although this is interesting because this says machine guns with the mouse and keyboard changes were kicking a little too much. I don't know. I'm assuming this still will reduce it also with controller because again, especially the fast firing rate machine guns and again some machine guns just fire fast in general usually. I feel like those felt the worst on controller. Everything else feels and felt pretty good, honestly, in my opinion, with like kick and recoil and that type of stuff. But those two were definite outliers. And I'm hopeful that maybe this will make maybe it is what you guys are asking for, right? Where they maybe do bring up mouse and keyboard to a little bit more recoil, a little bit more of that. But with these changes, the ones that really did not feel good on controller also get brought down a little bit, right? So maybe they are going to end up, if you read between the lines and consider how this could talk about things and what this could mean, end up doing both, which is interesting. And then we have rocket launchers. Bounty stacking is going to be way easier before next season. No weeklies to save. Are they? Yeah, those are probably going away, right? If you were to save bounties, they're just going to be. They won't be able to be saved. They'll just be gonzo if you're trying to save them. I'm not even personally bothering with it, honestly. I do it during like raid seasons just because I want to be leveled as fast as possible. But unless they announce, well, they didn't announce VOG. Unless they announce VOG on next Thursday, and then they're like, yeah, it's coming. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to bounty prep in like 3 days. But unless they do that, I'm chilling. Cold front feels trash on controller, good on mouse and keyboard. Gnawing hunger felt good on both. Right. No, I agree. 100%. That's why again, auto rifles to me on controller, most weapons on controller to me feel solid. They feel fine. Like auto rifles, scout rifles, pulse rifles, all those feel perfectly fine. Again, hand cannons, I feel like are eh. I think there's definitely people that are insane with hand cannons on controller. I am not one of them. Again, submachine guns and the super fast firing machine guns. Those were the ones that felt really bad. I'm hopeful that those top changes help those and also bring things more in line. Hopefully. All weekly bounties will be that makes sense. That makes sense for sure. So that's cool. That's not bad actually. Stopped using cold front when I got my Hailing Confusion. I like Hailing Confusion has the same fire rate as Bygones, and I always loved Bygones, so that was definitely my replacement for that, right? So that's a good call on that cardiac for sure. All right, so we have rocket launchers, right? We kind of mentioned this earlier. Rocket launchers, 30% damage buff. So obviously, at a glance, that sounds really good, right? I mean, 30% damage. I'm good. I'm chilling. The problem here is I feel like rockets still have a really, really, really big issue of, well, two big issues, I suppose. Most have one shot at a time, then have to reload. They reload really slowly as their rocket launchers, and then they shoot again. So like that's like their DPS is never going to be like super great probably unless their one shot DPS is just actually insane. Right, they do mention specifically burst damage. My question here is what do you necessarily burst? Like be interesting. We did mention Atrax, right? So like in something like Atrax, depending on how much damage this really ends up being, could be interesting. Like it has to be like either really, really short DPS cycles like Atrax, for it to really seemingly make a lot of sense, or not necessarily be used on bosses, like maybe more like tanky enemies that can be one shot by a rocket but would be hard to kill otherwise. Like if it could somehow one shot champions, maybe like it could be interesting. Or like yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to know where they're kind of meant to be used in a burst damage role again, other than like a short DPS cycle, because again their ammo economy is still not good. Like if they added the damage and added a couple more rockets potentially in reserves, or had more rockets, be either like 2 rockets, or even tripod have 3 rockets, so they wouldn't have that downside of reloading. Like it just feels like they still have a lot of downsides. Again, 30% is a lot though. Like 30% is a lot of damage. Like it's going to be definitely be down to just like testing and seeing how much like that really ends up playing out in terms of use. Um, but we'll have to see. Again, I'll have to see. We'll have to see. Um, there's a buffs to reserves last season. I haven't actually used. How big were these reserves? I don't think I've used a rocket. So how big were these reserve buffs? Because the reserves thing was an issue, but I don't think I've used a rocket this season. So maybe if these reserve buffs were big enough, like I haven't used them, so maybe. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. And also, this part is interesting and doesn't really tell us literally anything. So will Eyes of Tomorrow be insane? Maybe. Will Deathbringer be insane? Wardcliff Coil, like, this adjusted individually and are affected by this change to a different degree. Like, nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what that means. So we'll have to. Well, that's a definite. Like, we'll have to test it type of thing. May get hate for this, but I feel the weapons in the game should have a real life feel to them, as in the recoil, the muzzle rise, not shoot like it's a laser. That's my 2 cents and opinion. I think there's a middle ground. I think Destiny's the gunplay feels really good. Like to me, the gunplay of Destiny is like the gunplay, the movement, like everything like involved with Destiny, especially on the PvE side, is why I play the game. So like if it became like super crazy like that, like super crazy recoil, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much, right? Again, I think that's a perfectly valid opinion. I think there's games like that out there for sure. I don't know if I'd go quite that drastic personally. Like, at least I don't know if I'd personally like that if they went that drastic. But I think it's it's a perfectly valid thought. Eyes of Tomorrow works amazing for ad clears. So again, I don't have Eyes of Tomorrow, so I can't test it. Like I guess in my head, my question is like it would be mostly useful, right, for like multiple like semi-tanky enemies, right? Because if it's a whole bunch of little dudes, this is always kind of like my thought on this, right? If it's a whole bunch of little dudes, I feel like I really either A, don't need to use heavy, or B, something like Anarchy, where I shoot one shot and tick it on the ground, and then they just all run over it, just kills them all. And the ammo economy of that is much, much better than a rocket will ever be. Again, the situation in which there's like multiple like orange bar knights, let's say, or like weaker, like lower health champions or something, like that type of situation of ad clear could be very, very useful for a rocket, right? The question is, when exactly does that come into play, and are you able to effectively use it and do that in that situation? That's always what I'm kind of thinking in my head of like, okay, can I come up with a situation in which this feels like it would be the best case use scenario, and B, even if I can do that, is there a situation like that actually exists? And so that's always a kind of interesting thought for me. Went from 4 to 6 with Mods to 8, 9 on Truth. Okay, so it's better. That's better. Again, like I think the thing we could argue this 2 different ways, right? We could argue that 8 or 9 shots in a rocket isn't enough, or we could argue that 26 shots in Anarchy is a bit much. So like again, we go back to Anarchy. There were a couple downsides of Anarchy, right? Ammo economy is not one of them. Ammo economy on Anarchy, I feel like is very, 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 very busted. And I'm pretty sure 26 is without reserves. So I don't even know what you could potentially get with reserves. I never even bothered with reserves, I don't believe. But yeah, Tarkov is a good example. It doesn't fit for this game. I think that's very fair. That's very fair. Interesting fact: 30% was how much slugs got buffed by. Interesting, Ruku. Interesting. So if we could talk about Slug, but again, Slugs was buffed. Was Slugs buffed with Beyond Light, or was it the season before? I think it was the season before, right? And people still didn't use them until we got a situation to use them in, right? Um, so it might, or you could also argue that it would have been, it was with Arrival. That's what I thought. I thought it was with Arrival. Um, you could also argue though that like slugs were in such a bad spot before, or not necessarily a bad spot, but people just didn't use them before that it's hard to like go from not using something to like really using something unless it's like just plain and obvious, right? And I feel like Rockets may be in that same place where if we come into next season, we get this big buff on Rockets, and people maybe try them a little bit, and then they just kind of poo-poo them away, and then down the line they're like, oh man, this is crazy. Like, right, again, I think it comes down to that like use case, and then once you find the use case, then suddenly it feels better everywhere, right? Once you see like a really good use case of something like working really, really well, then it's like, oh shit, slugs are great for this and great for this and great for this. Even though they were the same, they were always like that for that. But we'll have to see. Also, what could be very potentially useful, obviously, what we got Heritage, which was a really good slug that came out in Beyond Light. So there could be a situation in which rocket launchers get a new rocket launcher that has really good rolls on it that then benefits the idea of rockets being buffed and also getting a better rocket and having a use case for it. Like there's a whole different or a whole multiple things right there. Hung on across the map from the cryptolith, waiting for a lure to be planted. An enemy spawned, aimed and fired, nearly wiped out the entire wave. That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. But I think there's definitely that seems like, I think like a spawn camp type of thing, right? Or like yeah, it's a different spawn. Like I was thinking like spawn out of a door, but like spawn into the area. I think works really, really well when they're all together, right? I think that's like a big thing on a ad clear type rocket situation is if you use it proactively when things are all grouped up close, that could be pretty solid. If you're a little late with it or something and things like spread out, then it's going to feel less good. So that's a good point. With one reserves, get to 32, bro. That's insane, dude. That's insane. Buffing rockets and fusions next, and Vogue is both weapon types. True. Also, hello, Sam. Hello, sir. How are you doing, friend? Welcome. We were just talking TWAB still. But yeah, fusion rifle. Well, this is interesting, right? Fusion rifles buff? Huh? There's a lot to less. Oh, God, Kitty. No, I like this. But, like, buff fusion rifles? Buff fusion rifles? Have they ever buffed fusion rifles before? Like, there's like the meme about better nerf fusion rifles, and they're buffing fusion rifles. The heck? I mean, personally, as someone that absolutely sucks with shotguns, and very much liked air intel back in the day, I like this. If I play any Crucible, I'm like, all right, make my fusion rifles better. Thank you. But I'm just like, what? Buffing fusion rifles? Thank you. Do it. Telesto for the win. 8 rockets, 36 anarchy, or 56 sword swing. See, that's the thing, right? We can talk about swords too, which is coming up here. Sword also have really good ammo economy, right? And so like I feel like the ammo economy of these things is really kind of the thing that like has really driven what ends up being like used, right? Whether it be an anarchy or grenade launchers in general, swords. Xenophage is like somewhere in the middle. I feel like its ammo economy is okay. It's middle ground. I feel like it's not bad. Sleeper's a great example of like they nerfed the shit out of the ammo economy, and they I think they also nerfed the damage and as poo poo. Then they I think they buffed the damage back, but they didn't change the ammo economy. Still kind of poo poo. If they gave Sleeper just a couple more shots, Sleeper would be right in there too. And that's linear fusion rifles, which I know multiple people were mentioning. It's like, where are linear fusion rifles? Nobody knows. But yeah, Sleeper is definitely a really, 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 really good example of ammo economy, like kind of leading the way when it comes to a lot of the usage of a lot of these weapons. I think that's pretty big. Definitely pretty big. What's going on? How are you doing? Welcome. 26 anarchy. It's crazy. Don't swords go up to 60? They can. I mean, it's a lot. The TLDR, it's a lot. It's a lot of ammo, and they do a lot of damage. Lament, Spinny Boy, like again, swords, and I know we talked about this briefly, so we can go to swords here. Sniper rifle flinch in PvP. I know a lot of people argued for this, so this sounds like I personally don't have a super strong opinion, but I know a lot of people thought that this needed to happen, so I'm assuming this is probably thought of as a good thing for most people that care about it. So I'll take that as that. But yeah, swords, they kind of needed it. Like, I feel like, honestly, what would have felt better, personally, again, looking back at ammo economy, is had they nerfed the ammo economy versus the damage. Like, swords, like, I think Brower specifically mentioned it, swords should do a lot of damage. They should do a lot of damage because they put you in really bad spots. They put you right next to the boss, and, they don't have no range. Like, you can't use it from any distance whatsoever, unless you're using the Arc Boy or Black Talon. But like, a regular sword, you can't use it from any range whatsoever, so that's already just a built-in, negative to it. You have 0 range. Also puts you in danger of going to do something and hit something with it. But again, it did do a ton of damage and also have ridiculous ammo economy. So like, I feel like nerfing the damage like 15% is kind of a lot, especially because they already nerfed Falling Guillotine. Like Lament, I feel like Lament itself probably deserved a nerf of damage. Like it's a straight Lament sword damage nerf would have been probably needed. And then maybe also maybe a 10% damage nerf to Lament and like a 10% ammo economy nerf just across the board would have been a little bit more better. Because I feel like Falling Guillotine isn't like it's like super crazy on terms of damage anymore. I mean it is, but like I don't know. Like especially I feel like the ammo economy is more the problem. But I don't know. Falling Guillotine ammo economy is amazing. Big reason to use it after even if it got nerfed last season. Right. No, I agree 100%. Forgot to shift enter. Barely started reading. No worries, Sam. No worries. No, exactly, Ruku. It's literally Falling Guillotine and Lament. Like, who is using other swords than Falling Guillotine and Lament? Really? Like, I mean, you can. You might be able to. But like, again, and even if again, I feel like other swords, like Lament needed a damage nerf. Lament was pretty crazy. Hunter's Gate. Okay, we're aligned. Well, that's not like damage though. That's not like that's not a part of this. But yeah, Lament probably needed a small damage nerf, just straight up. And then again, swords. Even if you nerfed like if Falling Guillotine and Lament just didn't exist, I feel like other swords would still potentially be a little strong. Maybe not even 10%. Like 10% on the amount of ammo. So if they have like 60 now, drop it down to like low 50s. That reduces like 2 big swings or like 2 or 3 like uppercuts. I don't know. Or another potential option, or a potential additional option if those weren't enough, or if they kind of were a little bit soft on those nerfs, is to lower the amount of ammo you get from a brick, right? Like that is something that, especially over longer encounters, can be a very big deal, right? Like if you get, let's say you have 60 ammo in a sword and you go down to like 20, you use a bunch of it, you have 20 ammo now, and that brick that you get back gives you like 6 ammo versus like 20 ammo, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a huge difference. Like, just getting that one heavy brick in the RNG, but that's a whole nother argument of, like, the RNG of ammo and, like, how much, like, there's so many, like, little discussions that could be had there and how to balance that. But at the same time, I think that's a really good argument where those things can feel a little bit more like precision changes rather than just like, here's the Nerf bat, 15% damage, it hurts everybody, right? I feel like you can play around a little bit more with like it adds maybe a skill gap if you either reduce the total ammo or reduce the amount of reserves that you get when picking up a brick. When you reduce sword damage, it just hurts everybody. It's not like you have to rethink about your strategy. It's just you now suck more. Like, this to be like just straight up with it, right? Like, it's just you do less damage now. Like, there's no like thoughts behind it. There's no like way to get around it. It's just sad, boys. Swords for a while for a joke. I think they buffed the damage to the place we are now. Well, yeah, I mean, swords were not great for a while. That's for sure. Not needing sword damage as a whole because of risk reward. Right. No, and that's a big thing. That's where swords can be at least somewhat. I mean, there's another thing here too, right? Not even talking risk reward. We're talking again to the first point I made. They don't have range. And that point can come down to something like the Garden of Salvation final boss that I still don't know the name of, where they can make encounters that are legitimately, or even Taniks, they can literally just make encounters where swords are completely unusable. Like, you just cannot use them. Like, they can just make an encounter. There's really not a whole lot of weapon types that are like that, right? Like, I mean, shotguns to an extent too, like if they made it forced really, really long range, or stuff like that. But like, swords specifically, if it's floating in the air to a certain degree, or like you're forced to be far away more than literally right on top of it for some reason or another, you literally can't use swords. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so no matter how, they could make swords insta-kill everything. Like, if they just made swords, guaranteed one-shot everything. They could do that. They could do that, and it could still be balanced if they just made encounters not let you get to the enemy, right? Like, it could be. Obviously, again, assuming we're not talking about Black Talon and other stuff, because that can kind of break that idea. But, and obviously, I'm not saying you should one-shot everything with swords, but, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there could be just mechanics built or things built that require you to not use sword. Like they don't need to necessarily nerf it in this way, in my opinion. Again, I don't necessarily disagree. Again, swords are this is very true. Swords are extremely dominant in PvE. That is a fact. Swords do too much damage compared to other options. Possibly a fact. I don't really know like the numbers to back it up per se, but especially Lament probably true. But I think there's potential ways that they could have gone about this maybe a little better. Adaptive swords are fine. I think damage-wise it should be adaptive, vortex, and caster. Which one's Vort? I know. I obviously know which one caster is. What's like an example of adaptive and vortex? I'm not sure which ones are which. 58 reserves on falling, guillotine or lament, maybe reduced to 40 or something. Yeah, 40 something would be in there too. Bright dust changes net good. That's where the positive stop. Everything else in the TWAB feels like Duke just said. You just suck more. Except rockets do 30% more, but only have one in the chamber still. Right. And again, to be fair to some of that, right? To be fair to some of that, again, there's the argument of things are too easy. You know, that is definitely an argument I've heard from multiple sources that think that, right? And that's not for everybody, but in a world in which things are too easy, if people think that, one way to make things more difficult is to make you suck more. Again, like to make things do less damage, to make you take more damage, to make whatever that may be, right? So that is a way to make things more difficult. So I'm not like even talking in that way. I'm not saying that that's not necessarily a negative. At least in my opinion. Again, speaking directly to this, even saying those numbers and saying what I just did, like it's not necessarily a negative. There's just always potentially more interesting ways. I really like the concept, even just talking through this, of rather than reducing sword damage, again, talking whether it be reserve nerfs and or brick pickup nerfs to kind of make you think about how you're using your ammo versus just being straight up nerfed on the board. The problem, again, I guess with that is, again, at least the way I look at things, I always look at it from a raid perspective, and because that's really all I play in this game. And so like for Deepstone Crypt, right? The problem is you always start an encounter with full ammo, and so obviously that feels really good compared to D1. But like in D1, that wasn't really the case in a raid unless you wiped multiple times, did a whole bunch of ammo runs, and so maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But in D2, you always 100% of the time in a raid at least start the encounter with full ammo and full super, and that is a big deal. And so like, especially in Deepstone Crypt, there's really no encounter that I feel like I'm ever running out of heavy, which again can come down to reserves, can come down to the amount of ammo I'm getting from pickups. Like, how do you balance that? Like, I think that's like a big thing, right? I think that even shows that potentially a little bit more of kind of getting a little bit more of a potential like thought process skill gap in there of like, I can't just spam out my heavy and still have enough. And that would also, I know that there's I know we were semi talking about the raid mods a couple of weeks ago maybe, and I know that there's one that gives you like spawns heavy bricks or whatever, and stuff like that. Rather, if you don't reduce sword damage, like that doesn't change how that mod functions whatsoever. It doesn't make it any better, doesn't make it any worse, doesn't make it any more needed. If they instead are more precise and more surgical with the change, and again reduce reserves, reduce amount of ammo you get from bricks, then suddenly that mod becomes infinitely more useful, right? Because you're starting with way less ammo, you actually may run out of ammo, and now you're like, oh shit, this mod that's been in the game forever. Like it kind of like can change metas almost without changing that type of thing directly, right? There's more like trickle down effects that kind of add more intrigue to the game, at least in my opinion on that. Mechanics of encounter lead towards using swords. I mean, A-Tracks certainly, for sure, Scrub, and even like champions and the overloads again, at least specifically in Deepstone. Lament is just Just nasty. Trials Rocket can get two in the chamber with Clone cartridge, but it's only good for one more season. Next weapons they're going to nerf are going to be Xeno and Anarchy. I don't know how. I have no idea how Anarchy hasn't been nerfed yet. Like, again, we talked about this briefly earlier when we mentioned Galahorn. I don't think Anarchy is on the level of Galahorn, but like, because it does have some downsides, but like, Anarchy is yeah. I don't really know how Anarchy hasn't been nerfed. Like I don't want it to be nerfed. I love my Anarchy, but like I don't really get it. It's pretty crazy. Especially again the ammo economy. Falling Guillotine is Vortex. Adaptive is Negative Space. Caster is Temptation Hook. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So you're saying, well, I guess that kind of makes sense because so you're saying Vortex, so Falling Guillotine should do less damage than the Negative Space, which obviously the way it works now is that's not the case, but it kind of makes sense because theoretically Falling Guillotine is an AOE weapon. So like it kind of makes sense like in my brain thinking about it that way. You're a hunter main, you're used to the nerf bat. No encounter where you need a specific super more than twice, even that is a stretch. Well, I mean that's a big thing too. Like I feel like the length of encounters is also like a thing, right? And I mean some of them can feel very tedious when they become too long, but it's such a weird difference, right, between D1 and D2. Like always having your super, always having ammo versus like it just didn't feel that way in D1. Again, like you could theoretically wait for your super and use synths or do ammo runs like and that didn't feel good either whatsoever. But like I feel like they could do a little bit better of a job balancing around the fact that you will 100% have your full ammo and have your full supers going into an encounter when it comes to again whether it be reserves or whatever else. But again, that's looking purely from a raid perspective, which could potentially break other perspectives. Upset about the mouse and keyboard stability change is going to feel bad coming back to D2 and having to retrain your brain. Well, see, that's a little bit of the issue on the retrain your brain part. Other than that, I think at least for submachine, like we talked about this briefly, at least for submachine guns, it was needed. Like submachine guns should not have the laser beam effect that they had on mouse and keyboard. Like that was needed. And the other part of the separate PvE PvP, the problem there is no world in which they could separate that. Like that would be terrible, right? Like there's no world in which you should like take a weapon in PvE and the recoil and the actual shooting of it feel different in PvP. Like that I do not agree with whatsoever. I do not think that could ever be a thing. Again, you could absolutely argue that they should change it at all or just leave it the way it is. But like, and again, I would even argue that that's not necessarily only a PvP focused change. It obviously is mostly, but we've also had this argument too where a lot of people have this thought of like PvE not necessarily needing to be balanced per se. And it doesn't have to, but I personally agree PvE does need to be balanced, right? Like I think PvE things that are like strong in PvE, it just because it doesn't like hurt somebody else what like a PvP situation does, like whether it be like stasis or whatever else. Like if something's too strong in PvE, I still personally believe it needs to be nerfed. Again, like Anarchy still like again, I loved Mountaintop, I loved Recluse. They went away, they got nerfed, whatever else. I dealt with it. Like those were necessary. If Anarchy gets nerfed, it is necessary. If Lament gets nerfed, which it's going to, necessary. Honestly, like that's the type of stuff that keeps the game, a challenge, right? Like they can only do so much if things are like out of line to make things challenging. Without nerfing stuff, and I think stuff being buffed or nerfed or whatever. That's just how a game goes. At least personally. But I just think I think that's how it works. For myself. Should all play D1 more? I'm just saying D1 had a lot of issues, man. Like I know we have this like thought of D1 being this end all be all, but like we go back to D1, had a lot of issues too, man. Had a lot of issues too. Of your 10 Deepstone Crypt runs, there are plenty where I don't super the majority of the time. I mean, that's a whole nother. Like Deepstone is just an interesting weapon or an interesting raid. In terms of it's again, it's fun. It's fast paced. It's just I think it needed a little bit of something, a little bit like a hard mode. A hard mode in Deepstone Crypt would have gone a long way. A hard mode with a couple extra mechanics, a little bit more add difficulty, I think would have been like this would have been a perfect raid to have the normal mode version and then a hard mode version. But it also doesn't sound like they're really looking to do hard modes for that type of stuff. Nothing to gain from D1 though. Yeah, well, that's an issue too. They're literally bringing back parts of D1 to D2 with Vogue. Doesn't jazz me if they're killing the reasons that make Destiny feel good to me. Brightness change is great. Putting that stuff in the game as rolling tramps is fine. Trials basically a season pass model. Put in the game, great. Yo, Jay, good night, friend. Can agree with you. The catalyst for nerfing mouse and keyboard is wanting to bring mouse and keyboard and controller closer together in terms of performance. Mouse and keyboard doesn't get any aim assist. It's them saying to my time spent learning mouse and keyboard, I don't respect you. Here's a nerf. But like, you could argue that for anything, right? Like, I don't respect your time learning to use anarchy. Here's a nerf. Like, I don't respect your time. And you could argue that for controller, right? Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, friend. Like, I'm not going to argue this because I know I have 0% chance of changing your mind in any way, shape, or form on this topic. But like, I don't know. I don't know what to say other than I disagree with pretty much fully from top to bottom. Like it just honestly, like, okay, no, I'm not getting into it. It's gonna become a fight. We're not getting into it. Who is this Teraba? Not me. Yes, not me. What's up, Orange? How you doing? Yo, Viance, I appreciate you, sir. I appreciate you. Raids need a more difficult version. The challenges aren't usually too challenging. Well, the challenges aren't even necessarily like for. Challenges are a bad word when it comes to that, honestly. Like, it's not necessarily to, like, as a more challenging way. It's like a meme way to do it almost. Like, obviously you're not gonna call it a meme, but like, the challenges aren't like they make you do the encounters kind of weirdly more than add mechanics or make it more like difficult. Usually, I mean, the challenges usually make it end up being a little bit more difficult. Usually, keyword usually. But I feel like a whole, like the hard mode, the normal hard mode thing, I think was really, really nice, honestly. Like, I just don't know. I don't think they're bringing it back. Like they've pretty much been like, nah, I was like making 2 raids, like all that type of stuff. Keep bringing back D1 content. We're gonna be waiting for D2 content. Keep bringing back D1 content. We're gonna be waiting for D2 content. But this is D2 content. Whether or not it was in D1, it's still D2 content. No skin in the argument. I'm not mad as being real. Something being nerfed on controller and input I don't use. It was aim assist being nerfed. Wouldn't care about it because it doesn't affect my input of choice. But I mean, if it's needed, and if it balances the thing, like, I would understand it, right? Like, just because I don't have skin in the game doesn't mean I can't like understand why they're doing it, right? Like, I mean, again, we've talked about, like, we've agreed that mouse and keyboard has advantages over controller. That much is known, like, across the board. But like, again, that doesn't mean it's easier. It just has built-in advantage. So kind of trying to find a way to, and again, they still said, like, we can go back to this. We can go back. It's not like they're making it the same, right? It's going from 40% to 20%. So they're bringing it a little bit closer. They're adding a little bit of recoil to mouse and keyboard. Because 40% is a big chunk. 20% is still a big chunk. So we'll have to see how it works. And they are also, kind of bringing it certain weapons back down. So it's like, 40% to 20% is 20% of a difference, right? But then, certain different weapons are then going like back the other direction by a different percentage, which then like averages out. Like, again, we can't average it out like directly because it's not like the same number, because like this is recoil and this is camera movement, which are different things but feel different and do different stuff. So again, I think all that type of stuff, to be able to argue it whatsoever is something we just have to see how it plays out. If it ends up feeling like really shitty, I'm sure people will be very, very up in arms about it. And I'm sure, something hopefully will happen. But we'll have to see how it goes, I guess, is definitely that. Because again, percentages, especially on recoil, like, what the hell does that mean? Like 40% to 20%, like what does that mean in terms of feeling? Like I can't like visualize that. I don't think anybody can visualize what this means without actually being able to use the weapon, right? Like I think that's a pretty agreeable point. Like we don't know what this is, what this entails, how that's gonna feel, how that's gonna change. Again, if it ends up feeling really bad, I'm hopeful that that they will fix that. And it is a positive, I would say, that they made these changes, and then right afterwards they were like, oh yeah, some of this stuff felt too bad, right? Like, so machine guns with the changes were kicking a little bit too much on mouse and keyboard, so they then changed this to make it feel better. Or pulse rifles were kicking a bit too much, so they then changed this to make it feel better. So the fact that they made these changes and then immediately went back and been like, okay, like this feels a little too bad, like let's bring it back, makes me feel like they're willing to kind of play the game and kind of figure out where things need to go. So we're hopeful for that. Awkward 3, hi Ember. Also Cardiac, thank you for the water, sir. I appreciate you. I appreciate it. Wanting to break away from the word bounty, which is basically you do this and get rewarded. Yeah, it's all kind of the same, right? It's like, oh, there's no more bounties, but now there's challenges. Like, no, that's very fair. That's very fair. Did we cover the ghost stuff? What was the ghost stuff? Was there ghost stuff? Was this today or was this ghost stuff? Oh, this. This is, I guess, something. Oh, but this is okay. So let's reread this because somebody earlier mentioned something that I didn't think that was what they meant. But yeah, let's reread this. So we have some exotic weapons lose their buffs when you switch weapons, which is intended. They would also lose their buffs when pulling out your ghost shell, which is not intended. Fix that issues on these weapons. Ace of Spades, Teraba, and Hawkmoon. So I think somebody had mentioned earlier that they thought Hawkmoon would keep their buff when switching weapons, but I'm pretty sure that's not what this means. Like, is this first part says, some exotic weapons lose their buffs when you switch weapons, which is intended, which to me means that these weapons will still lose their buffs when you switch weapons. It's just pulling out your ghost shell will not do that, which that doesn't make a whole lot of sense why it ever did. But this seems like more like more of a bug fix than a change, in that way. I was hopeful when I first read this, at least for Teraba. Like, I don't personally run a whole lot of Ace of Spades or Hawkmoon, but for Teraba, I know people have talked about this forever, that if it just didn't lose the buff when it switched weapons, that could potentially be really helpful for it. But it's yeah, we'll have to see how that works. When they made D2 for PC, they designed the mouse and keyboard input around the idea while controller. It feels good to have haptic feedback via vibration and feel connected to your gun and have it a reasonable of aim assist and recoil. Mouse and keyboard doesn't feel good with a lot of recoil for Destiny. Definitely changed the feel of Destiny for the mouse and keyboard input. Okay. I think your point is kicking it a little too much. Let's adjust this is fair. Right. No, I think they're just trying to balance stuff. Because again, like it's not like all games don't have recoil, right? Like Destiny's the only game I've really seen that just because it's mouse and keyboard doesn't have recoil. Like I've never really heard of that concept before until Destiny. Like I've played mouse and keyboard games. Like I used to play Counter-Strike. I used to play a game called Soldier Front, which is very similar to Counter-Strike. And it absolutely had recoil. Like I don't understand like why it didn't feel good on Destiny. Maybe there was a reason. And it's not like they're adding like 1,000,000% like, oh my god, it's gonna recoil like crazy. Well, I mean maybe they are. But we don't know that yet, right? If they do that and it does feel like that and it does feel bad, then I think we have an argument. Until we get to see it, again, 40% to 20%, like, I don't know how we can say that that's going to significantly change the feel of Destiny. I feel like that's just like looking for things to complain about. Like, how could we know? Like that there's no way to know that. And they're nerfing my input as a whole across the board, all weapon types. That is not all weapon types. It's only these guys. These guys right here. Following weapon types. We got auto rifles, scout rifles, pulse rifles, subs, hand cannons, and machine guns. So there's not quite all of them. Well, that's a good amount of them. But again, they're also then changing back some of the other ones. Getting for crossplay warplay. Warzone didn't work well with crossplay. It's a bug fix. Yeah. It's definitely more of a bug fix than anything. Right. No, for sure, Serge. For sure. Yeah, getting better attachments or mods. Absolutely. Getting less recoil if you do that. Right. Duality changes. I don't really use duality. I don't really know how this will affect much. This is interesting. Borealis and Hardlight have a custom animation for switching damage type. I don't know if that's like, is that going to change the length it takes to switch damage type? If so, that may be meaningful in some way. If not, just more of a cosmetic thing. Sturm will once again reload any equipped special weapon slot on kill, provided the special weapons clip isn't full already and there's available reserve ammo. Okay, sure. And fix an issue that was preventing Merciless from increasing its charge rate on non-lethal. I tried to use that didn't actually. This has been a thing for a while, hasn't it? Because I feel like I used Merciless like a pretty long time ago, and it wasn't increasing its charge rate, and they're fixing it. So that's nice, I guess. I used to like Merciless. Merciless was a fun one. Also, I know this was a big one that people have talked about a lot. At least for PvP, is apparently Arbalist is really strong. So apparently they're changing that. So that should be good for PvP peoples. Could be difficult to understand the scale of buffs and nerfs without having these changes in your hands. Absolutely true. Not to mention, there will be some new perks for you to hunt as you start navigating content in Season of the Redacted. As always, we're excited to see these changes out in the wild on February 9th, and we'll be eager to hear your feedback. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. If I wanted my experience in game to be the same as console, why would I be playing on PC? It's not as bad as my mind thinks it is. I think it will be fine. That's fair. That's fair. I think, like, I mean, the point I guess I'm trying to make is, as much, obviously I respect your guys's, like, I want it to feel good, right? I don't want it to feel shit. Like, that would be terrible, right? I don't want it to feel shit. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to argue this that's meaningful enough. Like it isn't, and I guess at the core is it's hard to argue if there's not the agreement upon mouse and keyboard having that like advantage. Again, we talk aim assist, but it's like it's not the same. It's not. I don't know. It's not the same. But that's fine. Crimson Days is gone. Bye, Crimson Days. We'll miss you. Crucible tokens. Yeah. By the way, if anybody has not seen this, by the way, Crucible tokens, make sure spend them. You have like 10 days to do so. Do that ASAP. Double stuff. This was actually really interesting. The very first time I was working on trying to do 3-man in the Deep Stone, this happened to me like 5 times in a row, and we were like, "What the hell's happening? Why?" I don't know why. So that's intriguing, but that's still a bug. I've never even seen that happen other than that one time, which was really weird. I know there's a lot of bugs. Sanctifying Mind, that's his name, thank you. I know there's a lot of bugs in the Garden boss raid now, so hopefully they can fix that stuff up. I heard about this too, where apparently the bubble or well makes the puzzle plates not work, which a lot of times people place a well in the middle. So that's kind of a thing that they hopefully will fix soon. Hawk Moon things, movie of the week, Coolio. More movies of the week, credits where it's due. I think there's one more thing to look at the very bottom here. Right here. We got this tweet, which I think maybe some of you guys might have seen before today. But we've got, if this gets 7 likes, we'll get a new load zone on Europa next season. So this is really interesting. They've never really gone back into a planet that's already in the game and added like stuff to it, like, or at least not like something this like kind of meaningful to me. Like I thought, like, I know there's big arguments on that, on the load zone thing, like when it first came out, and I was just like, I was not expecting them to actually add a new one, so it was good. It was good. Oh yeah, dude. Make Destiny great again. Yo, what's up, Penny? How you doing, sir? Suppressor. Here, Jerry, your opinions. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. Additionally, I don't play PvP. Advantages don't mean anything to me personally. Gameplay in PvE to feel shitty, like you said. Right. And I don't want that either. Again, my ideas or my system in my brain comes from the fact that I feel like, PvP should be balanced. Like whatever input you want to use, PvP should be balanced. I think everybody can agree with that, right? PvP should be balanced. But I personally agree PvE should be balanced exactly the same. Like PvE and PvP both should be balanced across input, across weapons, across damages, across whatever else. I know we had a quick talk about Borderlands earlier, where it's like they just don't apparently. And I don't know anything about Borderlands, so don't take this as right. But they're like they really don't balance things in Borderlands for PvE and stuff. Like they just kind of like let things go and power creeps, whatever. It doesn't matter. You just like slay out and do everything. I personally don't want that. Like I don't want. I want things to stay relevant. I want things to stay balanced. I want things to like be challenging and difficult. Um, and that's all I'm looking for. Yeah, not to say that any other stuff isn't. Mm, respect others in their choice of gameplay. There's a documented advantage to mouse and keyboard. People say there's no advantage. They are false. Luckily, I will be a potato gamer no matter what. I would. Can I quote that? Like that is exactly. That is 100% what I believe, Kat. That is 1,000%. I fully respect everybody. Mouse and keyboard is not easy. Controller is not easy. Whatever you've run forever is going to be easier to you than something else because you've used it forever. If you've practiced with, and again, that's where I do like that's the shitty part, right? Is the fact that mouse and keyboard has been the way it is for this long, and having to retrain. That part sucks really bad. This should have been a change years ago. Like like the fact that it took them this long to make. And again, I'm hopeful that this is a small change. I don't. It doesn't need to be. It shouldn't be a big change. I don't think it needs to be a big change. But like the fact that like that part, the part that you have to retrain, and you're basically almost using like a third input. There's like controller, there's mouse and keyboard until February 3rd or 9th or whatever, and then there's mouse and keyboard afterwards. Like having to retrain that is gonna feel like that's gonna feel shitty. The other like it's I guess to argue that own point that I'm making myself, arguing myself here, there is, the concept of, that happens in every game kind of in terms of like if they change a weapon, like even if you're using the same input, if they just change a weapon like recoil or something like that happens, right? Like you have to retrain yourself on that weapon. So it's interesting stuff. Recommend the first moment of the or moment what was it called? Moment of the week, movie of the week, first movie of the week. Let me see. Ting 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 ting.
Ting 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 ting. Ping 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 ting.
Oh my god, dude. That's funny. That's great because the hawk food is always like that makes that sound when you get all the crits. That's beautiful. That's actually beautiful. Would you have learned mouse and keyboard if you were not PC, Xbox, if you're a pure PC player? Honestly, the only reason I don't play mouse and well, there's I guess two things. A, switching back and forth would suck. And B, if I use a mouse and keyboard, if I use a mouse for too, I'm having a keyboard. If I use the mouse for too long, especially in like an FPS setting these days, my wrist starts acting up. Because I played PC mouse and keyboard, other games that were FPSs like a lot, like for years. So if that's really the reasoning. A is switching back and forth. B, the wrist thing. Honestly, even the switching back and forth probably maybe I'd still do it. But yeah, mouse and keyboard isn't easy. I know Esoteric can't do what he do on PC on console. I'm just saying he probably could. Honestly, like if he put it like I'm not like that's not even the thing, right? It's not that he couldn't do that. It's that I don't know. I don't know if he couldn't do that. But I definitely agree about like nothing is easy. No, nothing is easy. Absolutely not. You have headaches if your frames go below 90, dude. I don't get 90 frames on PC. What are you the heck? Don't even know what 90 frames is like, right, dude? Yeah, I play PC and I don't even know what 90 frames is like. I mean, to be fair, I sometimes get 90. But in most areas, I'd say I'm probably more in like the 70s or 80s. But yeah. Guy didn't even when he posted it was like so my audio didn't record, so I had to make my own. Really? Is that like the point? Like he literally just put it up there? Like no, there's no way, right? I don't know. Balancing how your super will affect hordes of ads is very different than how it damages a resilient guardian. Weapon use in PvP will always be very different than PvE, not better, not worse, just very different. Right? It's true, and again, like going back to the whole like weapon use thing, right? Like it doesn't feel so bad or so different if they change the numbers, right? If they change how much like damage a gun does, like the numbers are already not the same. Like if I shoot a hand cannon at a head of a guardian in PvP, it's probably I don't know what number, like 60 to 80, 90 damage, somewhere in that range, like a double-digit number. If I shoot a hand cannon to the head or a crit spot of a PvE enemy, it does like probably thousands of damage, or at least hundreds of damage for sure. So like those numbers are really not that meaningful. Like in terms of how many shots it takes to kill something, if it's like a 3-tap in PvP, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a 3-tap in PvE, right? Like that type of stuff can be changed willy-nilly to me, and like that, and it doesn't really affect that much, other than like in its specific activity, whether it be PvP or PvE. When it comes to, again, the recoil and like the way the weapon fires or the sound it makes, or especially like what I'm actually kind of intrigued about is how there was not that much of a blowback on hand cannons, especially for how many people used hand cannons, going from 110s to 120s and 150s to 140s, because I feel like that's very similar in terms of a retraining type of thing that we're talking about here. And I really don't remember. Maybe I'm crazy. Again, that was much more of a PvP thing, so maybe I just didn't see it. But I feel like that would be something that people would like if they're gonna be like super. Like it would definitely be something that like be super, up in arms about, right? Like that's because that's like the fire rate of a gun in both PvP and PvE, honestly, is a huge portion of the way the gun works, right? Like that is a big difference. Even if it's only 10 fire rate, like that's, you got to refigure that out. Like I think that, like, to me, that's even more difficult than recoil. Like recoil, you can kind of judge on the fly. The fire rate of like how fast you're clicking your thing or pressing the trigger, like that is tough. Like it's harder to like kind of adjust that on the fly. Um, it's spooky. Streamer just ignored Chin. Always SMH my head. Hi Chin, how you doing, sir? Corn. I don't ignore it. What do you mean? Sent it by Discord. What'd you send? The audio didn't count. I think that's got to be sarcasm, right? I feel like that's sarcasm. I like that. Hand cannon recoil change didn't bother me because PvP already had trouble using them, and I don't use hand. Well, that's the same for me, honestly. I don't use a lot of hand cannons. I'm just because even again, I look at Twitter, which is probably a mistake most of the time. But I see when stuff happens, you get a whole bunch of voices out there of X or Y thing. Today I definitely heard a lot of seemingly pretty big negativity over a lot of the stuff. And I don't remember seeing that same stuff with with those changes. So like I don't know, I'm not sure. I did feel bad, but I liked 110s before the changes, and even now with these changes, I will still play and get used to it. Things change over time. Probably won't feel great for a bit. Right. I agree. Like, I don't know. I think like the main thing, right, is it feels bad when things are being changed differently. Especially there are like kind of problems, if you will, like already, right? Like so, like obviously, like the overall sentiment, at least the overall sentiment I have gathered from people, just whether it be in stream, whether it be on Twitter, whether it be wherever, is mostly negative, to be honest. In Destiny, again, I personally haven't felt super negative about Destiny. Like I feel like it's in an okay place. Again, I understand some of the concerns, I understand some of the problems, I understand some of what people are saying. I personally like I think it's in an okay spot. I think it has like a pretty good, and I even specifically said this. I feel like its actual like baseline of what we got kind of set up for the future is potentially one of the best places it's ever been. Um, that being said, that doesn't mean there can't be like things that could be fixed or things that could be better or whatever else. But the overall sentiment that I've gathered from others, and again, that's not to say everybody, has been very negative, honestly. Again, it's not specifically talking to you. I'm just talking like or like you as in like chat as a whole. But like from Twitter or from just like things I see just kind of like passing by or whatever, or Reddit or whatever else. Like, and I guess to be fair, there is usually a lot more like speech or talk on. Like, I know the sounds don't work. I'm sorry, Sam. A lot more. You're more likely to speak out on something negative than like, oh, I'm really enjoying the game. Keep it up. Like, no one, no, not too many people are gonna like think about that or put that up there. So the people that are maybe enjoying it or whatever else maybe aren't as vocal, right? It's much more of a vocal like. I want changes. I want this. Like, what I'm saying. Like, I feel like the vocal side may be the side that doesn't like what's going on. But again, I'm hopeful. Like I really like this. I think a lot of people have agreed that we like this change. I really don't see this as any sort of negative. I don't think there really is too much of a way to look at this as negative. Again, it's purely a flexibility change mostly, and additional challenges, flexibility, more bright dust across the board. I like this. And I just like the fact that it's always with you. It's across all your characters. I think that's really cool. Again, if we're looking at just purely this one, some of the changes again, mouse and keyboard stuff. I'm hopeful it still feels good. I'm hopeful honestly, I hope it is like pretty minuscule. Like I really don't think it needs to be huge. I don't think it's like especially like really the main thing to me, really the only one that matters to me is submachine guns. I talked about this earlier. Submachine guns on mouse and keyboard specifically needed some sort of nerf, like just because again the laser beamness of it and the range of it, like it was just too much. Like and that didn't necessarily have to be the way they did it. They could have done it a bunch of different ways. And then additionally to submachine guns, fast firing machine guns, I think were the two that had problems. Everything else I feel like honestly isn't that big a difference or needed much. So I'm hopeful that it doesn't hurt things. And then what else did we have? So we kind of talked about this week or 2 weeks ago with this stuff. We talked about last week, but I don't have that one open right now. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a lot of things. I think that's a lot of talks. These game tweaks by majority vote to appease the masses that drives you nuts. We should have bitched about Whisper a bit harder for them to bring back the glory days. Well, see, again, I go back to my main argument of all of that stuff, right, Kitty, is the fact that there is so many different things, right? Because some people, and I feel like a lot of what you're saying there is sarcasm, obviously, right? But like some people will say, when we bring back things like Vault of Glass or Whisper or the weapons that they're bringing back from the Moon and Dreaming City next season, like some people will take that and they're bringing back the same stuff, reskins, blah 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 blah, like super hate it, right? And then there's other people that are like, bring back Galahorn, bring back Icebreaker, bring back this, bring back everything, bring back woo woo woo, and it's like, how do you can't possibly do both. Like somebody like there's no world you can't do both. Like you can't bring something back and not bring something back at the same time. It is literally physically impossible, right? And so trying to figure out what's best for the game moving forward, trying to like balance all that, like you don't know if you're right. Like, I mean, I think that's some of that, right? Some of what I just said is literally the same people, right? Like sometimes you'll say like, sometimes somebody will say like, I want this, but then they bring something else back. It's like, but I don't want that. Like, but yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, true, 100%. Like, I think everybody would agree we want new stuff. Like, new stuff is better than old stuff, usually. Like, well, again, like maybe some people, I want Galahorn, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, new stuff is cool and unique and fun and like and intriguing to find. I think the balance is right. Is like if where they're going here, like let's look at last year again, right? At least for me, my main look at it is Vault of Glass, right? Last year we got Garden of Salvation. That was our only raid. This year we got Deepstone Crypt. I feel like that compares well in terms of length, in terms, honestly, much better in terms of loot, in my opinion, in terms of the systems in it. But I think it could compare at least as good to Garden of Salvation for me. But on top of that, they're also bringing back an old raid for Vaulted Glass. So like it's to me, it's more of an addition than like instead. Like it's not like they brought back Vogue instead of a new raid. They brought back Vogue in addition because they had enough time to be able to adjust a raid that was already there, but didn't maybe have enough time to make a whole new raid halfway through. So I think that's again, that's only looking at raids, but weapons I feel like could be looked at the same way. They have enough time to make X amount of weapons, and they could just bring back nothing else besides that, or they could bring back X amount of weapons and bring back a few ones that people like. So I think that's a thing. Something they're going to do no matter how many people complain or bitch about it. They have to protect players from themselves. Very true. Very true. Sometimes they are off base. People throw around the term armchair developer all the time. Developers probably are armchair gamers that have the time to feel the same about the game as I do. I mean, I think that's true sometimes. I think at least I'm hopeful that there are also people there that do play the game and do feel the game about the game the same way you do or I do or whoever else does. Um, but I mean, obviously, I don't expect every person that works as a developer at whatever game, but Destiny, Bungie, or whatever, wherever place, to put in the hours. I mean, most of them probably do not put in the hours that like the absolute super hardcore do. But that doesn't mean that they can't like feel the same way about the game. Excuse me. Um, so I mean, I think that there has to be a balance, right? I think the biggest thing to me is trying to balance that, right? Like the first part of you saying there, they have to protect players from themselves. That's very true, but they also need to be willing to admit when they're wrong, and it's like, and be like, okay, like we thought this was protecting players from themselves, right? But we actually realize now that it's like, oh no, this was a bad idea, right? And I mean, they have done that. They have done that. I mean, they D2 launch between again the movement. Like I've talked about this multiple times. The movement in D2 launch, the double primaries in D2 launch. Those are like big things. 4v4 PvP in D2 launch. All of those things were things that they were like adamant. Like these were like big ticket ideas. Like they were like selling the game almost on these ideas. And then they got enough feedback that was like, this is stupid. And then they were like, all right, no, you're right. And they brought it back. And I mean, honestly, some of those changes to me or some of those ideas to me are still potentially like holding the game back in some places and still kind of breaking the game back in some places. But it does at least prove to me that they are willing to listen. As much of it as a meme, it's like, huh, they're listening. Like I think they are. I mean, I personally believe they are. I think some people will sometimes say like, oh, they changed this but didn't change this other thing that they said they're listening about. But like, it takes a while to be able to effectively make those changes, right? Like, they can't just be like, okay, we got this feedback, tomorrow or like January 31st, and then they're gonna patch it in by February 3rd or whenever the new or February 9th, whenever the new season is, right? Like they can't like make that like sweeping changes in like a week, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it takes a while to like to make the changes, to balance the changes, to make sure there's no like other things that they're breaking with the changes. Like it is spooky stuff, dude. Witherhoard's a great example. What a diamond that was. Witherhoard, yeah, Witherhoard's a cool one. Witherhoard was a good one for sure. Especially because I'm actually trying to use it a little bit now. I couldn't use it forever because Mountaintop. DSC has heavy weapons in it. Instantly better than Garden. True, honestly. Wonder if there are any of the devs that play this game and go, "Welp, we did this, so I gotta live with it." I mean, sometimes here's the thing, right, Cardiac? There's sometimes where they make a change or they make a decision, and again, like especially going back to something like double primaries, that like if they were to change it back, and again, even with double primaries, they did eventually change it back. It requires a ton of work just because of the way that they built the game or built the system into the game, right? Like so like there's times where it seems like it's just roll it back or just change this like haha easy. But like it affects so many potential things within the game that again, even if they're listening and even if they agree that like, oh, we fucked up, dude, like even if they agree with that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they either A can change it or B even if they can, it might take a while. It might take a while. Um, DMG gets paid to talk good about the game. The thing about this is the transparency. Where's the data? Look at time spent in D2 far differently than I do. I mean, I don't know if I'd agree. Like, I feel like I've seen DMG or any community manager. Like, they're not gonna shit on the game, obviously. Like, but like I don't know if I'd say like they're just like happy-go-lucky, everything's great, everything's perfect per se. Like, I don't know if I go that far. I don't know if I go that far. Yo, what's up, Midnight? How you doing? Welcome in. I mean, a dev team can't just poop out code and it worked flawlessly in a day? Maybe. 2,381 hours. Yeah, I mean, are they gonna have that? Again, I guess my point is like you don't have to have 2,000 hours in a game to be passionate about it and to understand like what will work, what won't work. So I think that that's the thing. Again, like, does that mean that does that mean they're not making the right choices? Does it mean they are making the right choices? Absolutely not. I think I'm arguing there for like you don't have to have quite like 2,000 hours. Like if you're committed to the game, if you're doing all the things in the game, if you're doing your raids every week, if you're doing like the GMs, you're doing like you're playing all parts of the game or playing if you're a PvE, like guy, if you're doing all the PvE stuff, you're doing all the PvP stuff, like you can make those decisions, right? And I mean, to be fair too, the developers aren't the ones making the decisions. Like, absolutely, don't get that confused, right? Like, the leaders and the game I don't even know what the hell it's called, but like the Luke Smiths of the world, he is not a developer, right? Like people like him are making the decision. And this is not to hate on Luke Smith or hate on any one specific person. He's the visible person, right? But the developers make and do what their team leaders tell them to make and do. So like the developers aren't really necessarily needing to be that committed to the game anyway. It's more, it's the people in the power that are telling them, what's going on. Like what is our team going to build now? Like what are we working on? What do we need to make it? What do we need to do? What's the design? Like that's all sorts of different people, right? So I think that's a really big idea too. So you talk about the season 12 weekly bounties auto dismantling even if completed. I think somebody mentioned that earlier, Owen, but good call there. Don't have the backing of Activision anymore, so they're even more restricted on what they can do in a given time period. Very true, very true. You have 69 viewers. Nice. Oh shit, let's go, Sam. Let's go. Yo, Cardiac, thank you for the lurk, sir. I think it's important to realize Bungie is a multi-billion-dollar company and needs to start hiring more people. We'll see. Got you, Shin. Got you, Shin. Good point. That is actually perfect segue. Perfect, absolutely legendary segue. If I can find which one that was talked about in. Was that a TWAB or was that something else? Is it this one? I'm gonna open up a whole bunch of things and see if we can find it. Maybe not that. I think it was like it wasn't, I don't think it was a TWAB. I feel like it was like a separate thing. It was definitely before this. Maybe was it earlier than this? No. Oh, here we go. Game director is, I think, the word. The game directors, are the ones making the decisions, is what I meant to say here. But, anyways. Right here. There's no way for us to make more rewards at Destiny's standards and still maintain the health of our current team. Therefore, we're going to reinforce the rewards team with more talent that will allow us to deliver quality and quantity in the future. Molding someone new into a master Destiny gunsmith takes time. This isn't going to be a change that the community will feel next week, but it does put our best foot forward as we step towards the Witch Queen and Lightfall. So this was posted on December 8th, I believe is what I just saw, December 8th. And so, yes, I agree. They need to hire people. They've done that. Again, we're talking months though, right? Like this is, that was what, 6 weeks ago over Christmas, and that's probably just that they're starting to hire people. Like it takes a while to actually hire the people. Then you gotta like get them into the systems. You gotta actually have them do stuff. Again, then all of this while they're working from home. Don't forget that too. And I mean, in the game testers thing, again, I agree. There's been a lot of bugs lately, but again, working from home, different types of like environments when it comes to that is tough. Is definitely tough. Haven't released the season name. They're just waiting for Tuesday. Hello, Kitty. Hired more people for the weapons team to create a problem that they created for themselves via sunsetting. That's fair. That's a fair point. Weapons team got filled out, but I mean overall Bungie needs to grow more, not just one team. It's possible. Again, I can't really speak for that because I don't know. I mean, I know that I think the number like 600 gets thrown out there a lot. Like, oh, 600 people working at Bungie, what are they doing? But like, I don't know, how many X people are like, artists and musicians and, networking and coding and and leaders of the different teams and in QA and like all like I can possibly know how many people are in each spot. So, but I don't disagree. Like I mean, if possible, hiring more. But it's also about hiring quality people, right? Like because you can just hire a whole bunch of people and be like, all right, do the thing. Like if they can't do the thing, then it's not helpful, right? Destiny ecosystem in its current state is constantly evolving. For the most part, the changes come from a good place, see quality of life edits in the game. That's what will keep this game sustainable for the majority. In the end, given the current set of circumstances with the pandemic, we are digesting more and more of the game than we normally should. If Bungie tempers their content to match the level of gaming digestion, this will be sustainable. Otherwise, all bets are off. Good call. Very good call. People expect something else out of their games right now because of how shitty the world is in. I mean, it's true. Like we have more time. It's It's a double-edged sword, right? We as gamers are like digging into these games even deeper than normal, and them as developers are having a much more difficult time to make the games, right? Just no matter what it is. I mean, but at this point, they probably have their system set up pretty well to be able to, communicate with people and kind of know what's going on, because it's been a pretty damn crazy long amount of time. It's been 9 months at this point, with the world being an absolute, like, at least for me, like not like something it's never been in my lifetime. But that still doesn't change. Like no matter what they do, it'll never be as good as being together in a studio and being able to make those changes. When was it built in a day? Absolutely, absolutely. Season of the Chosen. I have heard that sunsetting needed to happen. I think that see, that's the thing, right, Orange? I personally I lean towards agreeing with that. But again, I think some side, like both sides, will say will think that everybody thinks one way, everybody thinks the other. There is people that think on both ends of pretty much any question or spectrum that you could think, with decisions in the game, and it's tough. Recluse, Mountaintop, Revoker. Sure, how is Long Shadow ruining the game to the point where I need to get a new copy of Long Shadow to replace your old role? See, the whole replacing thing, that's a whole different issue, right? In terms of because if my argument, right? My argument is when they had like a different hand cannon every season that to me just felt all the same. Like I don't even remember the names of all of them, but like there was like the Forge hand cannon, and then there was like the stupid thing that I hate with the bridge that I can never think of the name of for some reason because I've tried to push it out of my brain. Hand cannon. Like at some point, it just if they never get rid of weapons, like it just becomes so bloated. Like it just becomes so bloated with weapons, even if they're not good weapons. It just becomes super bloated, and you have like all sorts of weapons that are all basically the same with really tiny little changes. That it's like what's the point of even getting the new one, right? Like this. It's arguable. It's very arguable to say that being forced to get a new one is good or bad, right? Like you could absolutely argue either side of that. But like that kind of keeps a reason to keep playing when if there's a pretty similar weapon, but now you like don't have access to the old one again. Like, is that good? Is that bad? Absolutely could argue both sides. But it is I think that there is more to it, and a reasonable reason and reasonable thought process of why that happens. How is armor ruining the game? Well, armor side, right? Armor side. If they don't sunset armor, this one's an easy one to me. If they don't sunset armor, you get one set of armor. You get the best stats possible, and what the heck are you doing with armor for the rest of the time you play Destiny? Literally, any time you get armor, it is just an instant dismantle. Which, to be fair, it's already like that kind of. But like at least at some point you are thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to re-get more armor. Again, I personally think armor is in an absolute butts place. Like I think armor is absolutely terrible with or without sunsetting in terms of how it is right now. I feel like the way to go with armor is absolutely 1000% without a doubt armor sets. Because that allows it not just to be like, oh, I'm gonna get one set of armor, I'm done. It allows you to continuously make like bonuses for having new activities or like updating old activities. You have new bonuses that you could bring into armor sets. It allows you to have to try to get different armor sets for different activities. If a new raid comes in or a new just whatever the heck activity comes in, now there's an armor set for it. My old armor, it still works. It's still fine. It still has good stats. But there's a bonus on this new armor set that's really, really good for this activity that I want to get. Like, so I feel like that's a super duper duper easy answer. Again, how well that could be balanced and how well that could actually be put into the game, and if it's even like possible based on the logistics of how their stuff is set up, is all other questions. But I feel like personally the way armor is right now is like poop. As it like it could be sunset, could not be sunset. Like armor is just not in a good place in my opinion whatsoever. But That's true. I've been playing more because your working desk is your gaming desk. So after college, Zoom calls and find yourself play a lot more. That makes sense, BG. That makes a lot of sense. Um, Outlaw and Rampage hand cannons would still dominate, right? Like that's the thing. Like I feel like they just all become the same at some point, right? Like, and I'm again, what I'm excited about, and this is actually perfect. I didn't even necessarily mean to be at this spot, but we talked about this briefly earlier, right? And so they're reissuing weapons, right? We've gotten these weapons, we're getting them back again, but we have new perk pools, so hopefully that can freshen them up a little bit. Secondly, what I'm even more excited about is that the Shattered Throne and Pit roll these weapons with perks that are only available in those activities, right? Like I think that that's a really, really, really cool concept because again, going way back to like one of the first things we talked about today, which was the Umbral engram system and having like being able to re-roll the stuff infinitely and all that type of stuff and all it's too easy or whatever else versus the raid system of like oh I have to do like this like a specific content to get this thing, right? This kind of plays both ends where I can get the weapon from X, Y, or Z thing, but then I can get like hopefully better weapon. Like hopefully it's not like I don't know, like hip fire grip on a sniper or something. Like, oh yeah, I can get hip fire grip on a sniper. Somebody's gonna be like, I use hip fire grip on a sniper. Maybe it's good. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like an absolute poo-poo roll, being like a new perk from the Shattered Throne or from Pit would be stupid. Like hopefully it's like the better perks. The better ones are from those dungeons. That would be preferred to me. And I mean to me at least personally too, especially these guys, right? Heretic, Blasphemer, and Apostate. Blasphemer, I think, was the slug, right? These guys didn't really get a whole lot of time in the sun, so it's like, bringing them back in a new world in which maybe they'll actually get some use. I think is pretty nice, right? And I can even argue like back to the whole like why can't we just keep weapons forever? Like these types of weapons didn't get use because we already had weapons that were like just as good, that we were used forever, we were already attached to. But now in a new world where we're kind of constantly rotating these weapons, now it's like maybe we'll actually get some use out of this. Maybe we'll have some time to use it. Why are you bullying me? I'm mean, I'm sorry. And the armor roll under 63 once scrapping. Yeah, it's rough, dude. One round run D2. We already have Luke Smith as the game director. We don't need two people in charge that don't know what they're doing. Savage. Drops with high stats. Well, see, that's a whole other. Yeah, I don't know how to understand what their high stats thing is. I think this was actually the TWAB that was pretty good. Again, I feel like they could have kept this. Like, I don't, like, this was a really nice thing, right? The fact that you could get fully masterwork gear from Pit, so nice for prisms, so nice for eventual golf balls if you turn them in. So that going away kind of hurts, especially for those that don't do, like, the high-level Nightfalls. But it still goes to 7, so, I mean, I guess it's good in terms of being able to use it. But this is the nice part, is guaranteed to drop with at least 16 in 2 different stats and higher stats overall, which, again, they've said higher stats overall, and then it rolled like 50, and what the hell is that? But, like, at least this is giving, like a direct number of plus 16 in 2 different stats, because, I mean, plus 16 is pretty solid in terms of, like, spikiness. Hopefully it's potentially even a little higher than that. But especially the 2 different stats, I feel like most builds, people try to build around, like, 2 stats. Whether it be, like, mobility and recovery for hunters, or, like, recovery and maybe intellect, or, Grenady Boy, what's the Grenady Boy? Discipline, for Warlocks, or whatever the hell Titans go for these days. Like 2 stats specifically, like you might want to go for those, and it would be pretty interesting. Monster Hunter World, we get bonuses for having multiple parts of the same set. So you wear 2 parts of the Crystocrene set, and you're getting melee to recharge a little faster when using stasis or something. No, exactly. Like Gambit Prime. Like for those, I mentioned this specifically. Like when Gambit Prime came out and had those armor sets, I didn't give a crap about Gambit Prime armor sets. I gave a crap about the fact that Destiny had armor sets in the game that did things that I would love to see in like a fully baked armor system, where it's like, okay, if I have 2 pieces of this armor set, I get a bonus. If I have 3 pieces of this armor set, I get a bonus. If I have 4, I get a bonus. If I have all 5, I get a really big bonus. Like, that to me is awesome, right? Like, that to me is the way armor should work. Because like right now, armor is basically just like it's honestly just cosmetic. Like, again, like the 60 rolls, getting high recovery. Like for most content, for me, again, PvP aside, for most content, the actual number of stats isn't that relevant. Again, like in a GM, I want recovery. Absolutely need. I'm gonna want recovery. It's gonna suck if I don't have recovery. Do I need that though? Not really. Do I need it? Like not really. Maybe in Classway. But like I'd like to see some like really like get this stuff or else type of content, whether it be weapons or armor, but especially on the armor side, and giving me reasons to play different content to then be stronger in that content. I think that'd be really nice. Wouldn't that be better if they didn't sunset them in the first place? Um, Maybe potentially. More talks. Yeah, well, welcome back, Brower. Premonition might be good, but never gave it a try. You had bygones and then cooled it out. Right, like so that's the thing is like if you have that many pulse rifles, that many hand cannons, that many like there some of these weapons just fall by the wayside, right? Like it at least allows different options to shine. And without having to nerf things, and so again, is that good? Is that bad? Is that better? Is that worse? Totally arguable on any side, depending on what you yourself feel. But it's tough. Had a decent apostate roll that I had to dismantle. See, that's a great point right there, and one thing that I've talked about a couple times, right? And so you had apostate, right? You had apostate, and I think people have mentioned multiple times, like, why can't I just infuse my new thing, right? Why can't I infuse my apostate into old apostate, or why can't I just infuse my apostate with whatever, like I could with any other weapon that's not sunset? And again, my one big call for that is a situation like yours, right? You dismantled yours. You were told it was being sunset. It wasn't something you were thinking you're really ever going to use in a sunset world. Dismantled. And I guarantee you a very big chunk of players are in exactly that same boat with a lot of different weapons, right? And if they bring it back, they bring back these weapons, and even if they do have the same perks, like you could roll the same roll that you had or the same roll that whoever had, and even if that's possible, and even if they kept it, like is that fair for someone that just happened to keep their weapon and then they can then infuse it up or whatever else, compared to someone that deleted it because they were told they were it's gone, like I mean, it's not gone, but it's sunset. You can only use it in certain activities. Goodbye, like so it's again, is that a good reason to not bring it back? Like not really, but it's a very understandable reason, because I wouldn't want to be in their shoes if they were like, oh yeah, no, you can infuse stuff if you happen to keep it. Like that's gonna be a shit show if that happens. I guarantee you that. Also, Martin, thank you for the water. Legendary heavy bow with flaming arrows. That'd sound like an exotic, but that sounds pretty cool. If it has flaming arrows, sounds fancy. Why would a warlock need mobility? I mean, top tree dawn, like you can go quick and do things and all sorts of stuffs. What's a hunter? But yeah, well, I've seen warlocks. UT is like a super addicted to mobility on warlocks, and honestly, for a while, um, I've started to respect mobility on warlocks a bit more, for sure. I definitely like it more. Definitely like the stacking bonuses from Reckoning and Primer. Yeah, exactly. I think that's it's so like built into the system, right, Brower? It's built in to have a reason to re-get armor. Like it's built. It's already in the game. It's already in that system where it's like if we come out with a new piece of content that has armor, hey, look, we can put stat bonuses or set bonuses into this armor, and now people are going to actually care about the armor rather than the god rolls that they already have. And like that, it's so obvious to me. And I talk every time we talk about armor ever, I bring this up because it's so glaringly obvious to me that I don't understand why it's not in the game. Again, other than like it has to be like a technical thing, or like I don't know, but like again, Gambit Prime had it. Like so, like even if it was like, how could it be a technical thing if they've had armor sets, and then they just don't like it? Just I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't. I guess the one thing is they did talk about they didn't like the fact that people like had to use certain armor and all look the same way in D1, which personally I disagree with that logic entirely. But they are adding transmog, I think, next season, which kind of invalidates that logic anyway, because you can look however you want with transmog. So hopefully, maybe that may be the precursor for them to have like their one reason to not do it and have a reason. So I believe hunters are redheaded stepchild. Wow, toxic. Should be having low mobility on some strikes and raids. It definitely helps on like certain jumps and stuff, for sure. This new sandbox, who even wants apostate? I mean, again, like I'm not necessarily specifically meaning like that one weapon, right? Again, blasphemer, but like, what about blasphemer if I don't do the raid? Like, I mean, it's a slog. Or, I mean, a lot of people liked, I think, Retold Tale, like Waking. I think honestly, most of these Sleepless. Who knows? You know, rockets were in a crap place for a while, right? Sleepless is the rocket, right? I'm pretty sure. But you know, with rockets getting a buff, maybe Sleepless is good now, and it also new perk pools. Maybe Sleepless gets a new perk pool that like is really really cool. Again, so like, I don't know, dude. I don't know.